May I shake your hand, sir? You need to show everybody. This is the first step to change. We're here together. We're not here against each other. Thank you for being here. Sir, may I shake your hand, please? Please. Sir, may I shake your hand?
For those of you who are listening on podcast, this is going to be unintelligible, but we're watching a video of a Canadian man offering to shake the hands of police who are protecting against the carbon tax protests up in Canada. And what we're looking at is basically a line of stormtroopers, militarized police force, who have been mandated to and are carrying out the orders of protecting the public by crushing any form of peaceful protest that Canadians still have the right to engage in. Everybody, and there's a longer purpose to that post. I should have shared it with everybody, actually. It's on my Twitter feed. Go check it out. Go give it a share, because what you're witnessing is, in real time, how good people can do bad things. I don't presume all those people are necessarily evil. I appreciate that they're police and they're intended to maintain law and order. But when the police don't protect the people, but protect the government, you no longer have democracy. What you have right there is tyranny. And I was going to make the cheeky, cynical comment that this is what, the modern day Gestapo looks like. The only problem is the Gestapo was Hitler's secret police. These stormtroopers are not secret police anymore. They come in during the Ottawa protest and they bust skulls, literally. Pepper spray veterans, arrest veterans, physically assault peaceful protesters. They do it in plain light. CBC accidentally covers it, and then that video of the RCMP or whoever it was, kneeing a veteran like they were a sack of potatoes. Well, that video gets quickly removed and gets quickly flagged on YouTube. They're no longer doing it in secret. They're doing it proudly, serving the government and not serving the people. And that gentleman was just walking around saying, hey, shake my hand. We're in this together. And I understand it's totally unrealistic, but the image that generated will resonate, and as it should. FTP, I think I know what that means. Everybody, this is going to be a good one. This is a man that I've been following now for following the story of, never met, never spoken to Viva Voce until 1 minute before this stream. Tommy Robinson, public enemy number one. I want to say that Tommy Robinson is like the UK or the British, the European version of Alex Jones. I say that only because that's my learning curve with Tommy Robinson. I remember what I thought I knew about Alex Jones. I remember what the media said about Alex Jones. I remember the treatment that Alex Jones got. I remember what the media said about Tommy Robinson. I remember the treatment that Tommy Robinson got. I got interested in it from a merely legal perspective. How the hell does a man get convicted of contempt, sentenced to 13 months in jail within the same day in any country that doesn't start with North and end with Korea, or start with, I don't know, I want to say Russia, but I think in Russia they have more due process. So I've been following Tommy Robinson's story for years. And I think I have discovered that the people, the media, go out of their way to slander and defame the most as the villains, ironically enough, more often than not, or statistically improbably, end up being the heroes and not the villains. And I'm not like, I'm going to meet Tommy. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff. I know a lot of his story. He's a controversial man, and whatever that means these days. The most hated and the most loved man in the UK. And I've got 90 minutes with him, so I'm not going to waste any more time on this intro. Tommy, I'm bringing you in. Everybody, you're going to tell me if the audio levels are good. Sir, how goes the battle?
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? I'm
doing well as well. I'm good. I'm very well.
Tommy, like I've been following you for years. You probably didn't know I existed until relatively recently. And I've had thousands and thousands of questions that I'm going to boil down now. People say Locals is not streaming. Sorry, Tommy, give me 1 second to fix a problem here. Yeah, we're definitely going to make sure we're streaming on Locals. And I think I know the problem is that I'm an idiot. Edit. Going to add one link right here. Sorry about that, everybody. And sorry, Tommy. Well, while I do this, Tommy, 30,000 foot overview for anybody who might not know who you are.
I am. So I grown up in a town 30 miles north of London called Luton Town. When I was born in 1982, we had one mosque. We've now got 45. So I've seen and lived the experience of Islamic domination of your town. My town, white English are a minority in my hometown. In 2009, during a soldiers' homecoming parade, the soldiers were given the freedom of the city on their return from duty, and they were attacked by Muslim protesters who spat in their mums' faces, called them butchers of Basra. In response to that, and not just that, but a long history of witnessing two-tier policing, witnessing Islamic radicalisation out of control, I formed an organisation called the English Defence League. We went from city to city, protesting and highlighting on the streets in our thousands issues which were being ignored, which the general public were too fearful to talk about. Remember that they had managed to paralyse our entire country through the fear of being branded racist for 30 years. So every issue had been hidden, had been brushed under the carpet, and then come along the English Defence League like that, straight into the public domain, and started screaming about these issues. We went from city to city. We travelled for 5 years. We literally held a road show, highlighting issues. And a lot of the issues, remember this is 2009, so the issues I started talking about, which we were using our platform to highlight, this was before people were having these discussions. It was before really the blowing up of social media. So the public sphere to have these discussions was in town centres with thousands of people from those towns listening. So we were going to the town centres and talking about the issues to do with rape, jihad, groups of Muslim men targeting young girls in English cities across this country that no one was talking about. That's a basic. I then left my street activism in 2015 and I turned my hand to journalism. And I've since made probably 10 feature-length films. I now act as a journalist and work as a journalist. And I continue to shine a light on corruption and issues that people or government want to hide. And they're usually issues to do with open border immigration.
All right, now, not to get too far into the past, I know that your mum is Irish. You're the son of, are both your parents immigrants to the UK or to England?
No, my mum's Irish. My real dad was English. I was brought up by a Scottish man who I say is my dad. So yeah, my mum was one of 8 children. When she come to Luton, it was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Those were the signs on the doors at the time. Luton is a melting pot for every culture, every community. Everyone pretty much is the sons of immigrants. And I talk about the experience of that and how all those communities that come into the town pretty much got on pretty well, apart from one. One section of the town has failed to integrate, failed to assimilate. And I just talked about things through my vision of my hometown of Luton. That was the Islamic community. When I went to school, you had the Muslim playground and non-Muslim playground. There was never racial lines or racial divisions. It was always religious. So that's what I talk about. But yeah, my mum was one of 8. I've had a working class upbringing. Luton, so people understand the town, is rated as the roughest town in the UK. It's not a great place. It's got a lot of problems to do with poverty, to do with criminality. Yeah, so I talk about those experiences. And unfortunately, with the class system in the UK and a lot of our classist journalists or classist politicians, they don't want to hear it from someone like me.
Well, so, and how many siblings do you have?
I have 1.
All right. Now, so you're born and raised in Luton. I was looking into it a little bit. I'm a Canadian bumpkin. I've never really grown up in a rough town. Has Luton always been relatively rough? And if so, what made it rough back in the day versus what makes it rough in today's time? Because I think rough towns, I think Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, and all of these great British films. But I have no personal or direct experience with any of this, of what it looks like.
Luton's always been a rough and violent town, probably to do with poverty, probably to do with its location, mentality. What you grow up thinking is normal, you then realise isn't normal. The way to deal with things, the level of violence, whether it even just be at school, everything was solved with violence. And that become a normality in my life of believing how you grow up and how you earn respect or how you defend yourself. But then Luton has been taken over by Islam, totally taken over. As I said, 45 mosques. Luton was named by the American CIA as the epicenter for terrorist activity. It was a launch pad for the fertilizer bomb plot, the 7/7 bomb plot in London. They got their bombs in Luton, the Stockholm bomber, the fertilizer bomb plot. All of these plots were staged out of Luton. Luton was home to Al-Mujahideen, who are now a prescribed terrorist organisation, but they weren't. That's Omar Bakri, Abu Hamza with a hook. Their head office of their operation was in Biscuit Road, which is a town that's actually where my auntie lives. Yeah? So we grew up becoming accustomed to knowing who these men were.
I'll ask a stupid question. why Luton? How did it end up being the place where a certain demographic was landing and coming to live?
I'd say because of Vauxhall Motors. We were the home of Vauxhall Motors in the UK, and a lot of the original Kashmiri Pakistani community would have come for work. Now, the Kashmiri Pakistani community that come to Luton are from a very tribalistic, low IQ, low education area of Pakistan. And we then were set up base for al-Mujahideen, for extremist organisations. The Gulf, when I speak to the elders in my town, the attitude of the Islamic community changed after the Gulf invasion. It's like the launch for jihad was launched after the Gulf invasion. The radicalisation and the division and the new level of violence brought to the streets come after the Gulf invasion. And then literally, when I say, I've spoke about this, I've showed evidence of this. When September the 11th happened in my town, there were celebrations in college. Each year, they marched and paraded and celebrated September 11th. When I went up to my local shops after September 11th, there were magnificent 19 posters all over the place. Yeah, it was a celebration. The extremists, the radical, the jihadists used to have stalls set up every week in my town centre. Outside Don Miller's bakery, Don Miller's just a bakery chain. Outside Don Miller's bakery chain, everyone knew that's where the jihadists were week in, week out. This was before people even knew what jihad was, really. Like, this was before the September, before 2004 terrorist attacks. I organised my first demonstration called Ban the Luton Taliban in 2004 when I was 20 years old. And that was, I called it Ban the Luton Taliban because these groups were openly recruiting on the streets of our town and sending them to fight against our armed forces. Our armed forces were suffering and dying in faraway fields, and men who were British men, born in Britain, yeah, they hate Britain, but they were literally on our streets in my town, recruiting, radicalising. So that was my first demonstration I held. The response I received from that was a young man. I received violence. I received my house come under attack. I then received years of battling Pakistani gangs in the town because I decided to speak up. And it wasn't the radical terrorists who come for me. It was all the drug gangs. So that was my first experience of the allegiance between the drug cartels, the Pakistani mafia cartels, and the radical extremists. And I wrote about this in the leaflet. I put out a leaflet in 2004, and I used this in a speech I gave at Oxford University to show people. In that leaflet, I named the gang. Yeah, this is what got me in trouble. I named the gang Gambinos because, and what I said at that time is they use heroin as a weapon against our community. They use heroin to destroy our community. They are attacking racially and religiously motivated attacks against members of our community. And they can attack white people and black people, and they're not getting the full force of the law. They're not being dealt with by the police. The police are afraid of this section of this area of the town. So I spoke about all these things in this leaflet, and I said that they're using drugs to target our daughters, to pimp them as children into prostitution as paedophiles. And so this was the first time. This is now common. Everyone knows this was happening. But when I'd done this in 2004, I probably wasn't ready for the backlash. But as a youngster, I navigated towards the football hooligan scene in England. Yeah, I was a young lad from a working class town. Most of my older relatives were in the football scene. It was a culture. I gravitated towards that. So when I held my demonstration in 2004, there was lots of young lads, English lads like me, who were not willing to back down. And that then exploded into years of problems for me. Years of problems. And then comes around 2009. So this is 2004. Comes around 2009 with the Soldiers' Homecoming Parade. And I just got over all those years of trouble. Yeah. But then with what happened, I was biting my lip because at this point then, I had 7 properties between me and my partner, 2 successful businesses. I was getting on well in life, and then they attacked our soldiers. And I was so desperate to say something and do something, but didn't want the back. I knew what comes with it. And as soon as you talk, they're coming for you. Yeah? So then I used a pseudonym, which is Tommy Robinson. That's not my real name. And people make a big deal of, why did you use a pseudonym?
When I first discovered, what do you? I mean, everybody knows your natural name.
Yes, Stephen. I was born Stephen Yaxley. Yaxley was my birth name from my English dad. Because I didn't see him, I then took on the name Lennon, and it became Yaxley Lennon. And then I got rid of Yaxley totally because if I had children, which I have now, I didn't want them carrying that name. So Stephen Yaxley Lennon, the media always like to remind people it's Stephen Yaxley Lennon. But the only reason I'd done that is because I knew my house would come under attack. I knew I would face death threats. I knew all these things, but I wanted, and you know what was insane? For 1 year, I wore a mask and used the name Tommy Robinson. No one knew who I was. No one knew. Even people, my mum didn't know it was me for the first 6 months. I'm going into studios with a mask on and hiding my identity everywhere and talking about these issues because I was desperate for someone to talk about them. But I was the same, and I fully understand it. You know, with cancel culture now, do you know how many people are out there who are sitting there who are successful, who agree with everything we're saying? They're worried, they're fearful, but they're too scared to say something. I was that person. I was scared. I didn't want to say it, but I was so desperate to talk about it that I used a pseudonym and wore a mask. And after 12 months, the Times newspaper ran a big spread. By this point, we'd travelled the UK, causing a lot of chaos with demonstrations. We were very hard to control as an organization.
Let me do one thing before I ask more questions. We're going to end this on YouTube, and not out of fear of any censorship. I'll post the entire interview afterwards, but because we're going to go to the platform where we favor free speech, onto Rumble. So the link to Rumble is there, everybody. We're going to dive into a little bit of the trouble years, because I got some questions about that. Get into the grooming gangs, where that's where I discovered it, and we discovered something that had been going on for years. We'll get into who knew, who didn't, who knew and did nothing, and who knew and did something. So come on over to Rumble. We're ending on YouTube, and we're going to carry on with Tommy. Done. I see Tommy. I only knew you as Tommy, and it definitely has a ring. Tommy, Tommy, Tommy. Oi, oi, oi. Like back in Canada, where we don't have quite the same accent. All right. Back it all the way up to you're 20 years old, and you first start becoming an activist of sorts. And you're hanging with footballers. And again, what I know of the European footballer culture, I saw in a movie called Eurotrip. So when you say there were trouble, people wouldn't back down. When there'd be protests, there would be violence.
So what happened, just so you understand, so they attacked our soldiers in Luton. We then organised a response to it as a community.
You actually explain that for those who don't know. The attack on the soldiers, spitting in the faces of the mothers. What was going on that even was allowed to happen?
So soldiers' homecoming parade, going through the city. It was very kept quiet anyway, which was weird. It wasn't publicised. It was on a Tuesday morning. I went down there that day, and as I stood by the town hall, I started seeing lots of police. And I thought, right, there's a lot of police here. Then I saw a group of about 30 women wearing niqabs. Yeah, 30 together, which is quite a sight anyway. Yeah, 30. We have a lot of niqabs in Luton, full burqas, yeah, but 30 of them together. And then I looked, and then I saw Saif al-Islam. That means Sword of Islam. He's the leader of the extremist radical group in Luton. I saw him, and then I started seeing more of them. And then as I'm looking around the town, I thought, oh my God, they're going to do something against our soldiers. They're mobbing up, like the Muslim radical jihadists are mobbing up. Then I saw, and I stood and watched as the police took this group of about 20 of them through the town hall. So that's through our government building, our council building. These jihadists were taken through. And I'm watching as a soldier walking up thinking, what's going on? And then I just hear loads of commotion. And what they've done is they've took them through the town hall, out the back door. And at the back door is where the soldiers are walking past. So they've put them here, right next to our armed forces. And then they've started spitting at them and screaming at them. Baby killers, butchers of Basra, massacres. All these slogans are being chanted. They've pulled all their banners out and placards. And listen, I was against that war. Most people can be against a war. Yeah, attacking that regiment, the Royal Anglians, were actually there training. Yeah, they were training. In that regiment, Scott Muntridge was from my estate. He lost his life. Yeah, Michael Swain, who was 19, lost his legs. These are kids we knew. Yeah, their families were there that day. This was the one moment of the one day that we can respect them and thank them for their sacrifice they give for us. And these jihadists, it weren't just, we know how they think. I've grown up with them. As I said, I went to school with them. Yeah, I know who they are. So we know how radical they are. We know how extremist they are. And that's the other thing for people to, you see, when you see these jihadists on the news, to some people, this is a real far away thing. To us, that's the prick from my science class. Yeah, we know them. Yeah, I know them inside out in my hometown. Yeah, all of them jihadists. I know the ones that went and fought and died for ISIS. I know them that have been, all the ones who have been convicted on terrorism. I've had clashes with them for years. So we know them, and our government know them, our police force know them, and here they are bringing them through our town hall to attack our armed forces. And for us, or for me, the police then turned their backs on them and they attacked all the English who were rightly outraged at what had just happened. They didn't put their hands on the Muslims. I watched it all. So then, in response to that, obviously tensions, Luton was ready to blow. People were not happy. We weren't happy. Every time you hear my hometown's name, it's to do with terrorism. And we're fed up of it, okay? Because we're from Luton, Englishmen. We love Luton and we love our armed forces. And our name of our town is dragged through the dirt week in, week out to do with jihad or terrorism. So when this happened, I then organised a response called the United People of Luton. And when people saw us on the streets, before we went on the streets, I got a petition. And what the petition said, in the UK, we have ASBOs, antisocial behaviour orders. And if two young kids are continually being antisocial at the shops, they get an ASBO, which bans them from hanging around together in a certain area. So we filled out a petition. We got 3,500 signatures. We tried to contact the council to receive it. They wouldn't. And the petition asked for them to use ASBOs against these jihadists to ban them from standing in our town centre every Saturday. So when my mum or my auntie or my nan goes shopping, they don't have to brush shoulders with these terrorists and their supporters. Yeah, that's what we wanted. So we tried it the right way. We then tried to walk to the War Memorial. We organised, it was a bank holiday Sunday. We organised the community. As I said, my aunties were there. Now the police come out on horseback, and I videoed it. So I remember, because I know what's going to happen. I've grown up in a town that's plagued by these problems. Yeah, I spent £450 on a wedding photographer to come and video the day with us. It was the best thing I ever done. And the police come up to us and they made us take our shoes, our socks off in the street. They put their hands in our pockets. And I remember saying to them, you didn't do this to them. Why are you doing this to us? You did not do this to them. I watched you that day. You didn't touch them. Why are you even putting your hands on us? So they were putting their hands on us. And then they come through on horses and they tried to block us getting to the War Memorial. They let them get to the War Memorial. And then they're not letting us get to our own War Memorial. So on this day, they blocked it and they kettled for 3 hours. They held our community for 3 hours. My auntie had to urinate in the street. So after this was the final. After this, it was like, no, this is. And after this, then what the police done is they come to 14 houses. They raided my house. And they come to our houses on public order offences. This is something I'm actually making a documentary about now. It's exactly what you were just talking about, yeah? We were legitimately protesting. They tried to crush us. They picked one lad from each estate in the town and they come in and nicked us and give us bail conditions banning us from our own town centre 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 4 months. So what we wanted them to do to the terrorists, they done to us. So
I read that a couple people were arrested as a result of that confrontation. I presume it was I'll say English or not. It was not the anti-war protesters.
No, it's English. It was English. As I said, this day, they knocked my friend's teeth out. The police come past on their horse.
In 2009 at this Luton.
2009, they come past and they smashed. And my friend was a little black lad, yeah, black English lad. They knocked his front teeth out. So this was the catalyst. People talk about why did it form? Well, if we would have just been allowed to get to our War Memorial and hold our rally in support of our armed forces, you'd never heard the name Tommy Robinson. Yeah, but abusive police powers, a two-tier policing system that treats them differently to us. The response to that then was we had another bank holiday in 2 weeks, and we all met up and said, not this time. They are not stopping us. Yeah, and I gave out balaclavas, and we met. And from the minute we left, we all put balaclavas on, and but reason being, so you understand, I was banned from the town centre. Yeah, all of us were. But why shouldn't we be able to go into our town centre? They used these. No one ever got charged, so they arrested us, gave bail conditions not to enter the town. But literally, then it was young. I went to every estate in the town. I spoke to all the young men and said, on this day, we're all coming together because lots of different areas of Luton don't get on with each other. I said, on this day, we've all got to come together because they are taking the liberties with us. They're destroying our town, and the council and police don't care.
And now, just to position this time-wise, the grooming gangs that had been doing things to young girls, that had been going on for a long time as of 2009. Like, I'm trying to piece together.
My cousin was a victim of those gangs in Luton. So growing up, she was a victim at age 13. She ended up hooked on heroin. So when the family are trying to when she's ended up getting out the windows to go back to the gangs. So people understand, when we say grooming, in India it's called love jihad, it's called lover boy in Holland. What we're talking about is rape jihad. We're talking about large groups of Muslim men who target young impressionable girls. They make them either fall in love with them, or they hook them on alcohol and drugs, and then for the first 6 months, they're very nice to them. They treat them very well. They lure them in. They then cause a divide with the family. They tell the young girl, don't trust your mum and dad. You're a grown-up. They're not treating you like a grown-up. They isolate the girls from their friends and family, and then bang, they're gang raped by multiple men at the same time. My cousin woke up naked in a house with beards everywhere, just Muslim men with beards. She ran naked from the house. So all of these things, remember, before this explosion in 2009, these are things we're growing up with, things we're living with, and things we're seeing. We're seeing it all out of control. And we're seeing that the police don't do anything. So you'd be angry anyway. We were all angry. And this was the final, for us, when we met up, I said to the lads afterwards, if we let them do what they've done today to our armed forces, if we let this go, yeah, then what's next? They're going to be coming to the soldiers' funerals. Like, we can't let this go. We have to do something. And then the second demonstration, so 2 weeks after the first demonstration, which they managed to stop, the second demonstration had come, and 500 young men turned up, and they couldn't stop it. It got heated with the police. Again, they tried to stop it. They tried to stop it. And I contacted the police that day. I contacted the police and said, anonymously, and said, if you don't let us get to the memorial, I'm telling you, the town's burning. Because that was the mood of the town. That was the mood of the young men. It was like this. It become more about equal rights. You hear so much over the years about justified anger and frustration. When I say, people are seeing it now, it's become a very topical conversation of two-tier policing. Suella Braverman said it. Lee Anson said it. We're seeing the Met Police police the Muslim community with kid gloves over Gaza and Hamas. They're allowed to do what they want. Any patriots with Union Jacks or St. George's flags are literally beaten to the ground. Yeah? That's literally what I've seen my whole life. And this incident, when we videoed it again, we went through the town, and then I put a video online and said, I called it Luton protest. And I put a video online saying Luton is standing. So Luton has decided to, and when I say Luton, remember, our local government stood on the news and said all these people are outsiders coming into our town. You can watch the second video. It's under United People of Luton protest on YouTube, yeah? Literally, the whole place is singing, "We are Luton Town," because it was a group of 500 young football supporters who decided to make a stand, and that stand then give inspiration. We then put it online. I then went online, and remember, the reason for this was over the soldiers' homecoming. What we then saw, the same group who attacked our soldiers were holding an Islamic roadshow around the UK. And they were in Birmingham, the UK's second biggest city. They're in Birmingham, which has a massive Muslim community. And there was a big banner they had, which read, "Jesus was a Muslim." And they stopped an 11-year-old boy called Sean, a young English man, young English child. And they got him on stage and made them repeat after them. And they converted him to Islam. Now, after they converted into Islam, I watched that and thought, no, again, this cannot be allowed. Young children shopping without their parents' consent cannot be converted to radical, not even just converted to Islam, but converted by jihadists. Yeah? We know the punishment for leaving Islam is death. Converted by jihadists. So we then took our movement to Birmingham, where we were met. Only 50 of us went from Luton, and we were beaten off the streets. All the images went in the national newspapers. We then we had changed the name to the English Defence League from the United People of Luton. And this is just so you understand how it went the way it went. Like Salma Yakubu, local Muslim politician, come out, and she had said, and mosque leaders have said, that they must come out on the streets to confront these men coming from Luton. Yeah? We went up there with signs that said Muslim no problem, extremist Muslim big problem. Our signs were talking about the Christian victims of jihad in Nigeria. We were talking about jihad and the focused problem of radicalization within Islam. And we were beaten off the streets. And this is the first time I realised what we're up against with the media. There was a young white boy at the bus stop who wasn't with us. And about 6 Pakistani Muslims were jumping on his head. And the picture in the newspaper was of him unconscious and them jumping in the air on his head. And it read underneath it, "A fascist is attacked by anti-fascists." And I remember reading it like, whoa, like I wasn't political at all. I was just a young lad from a working class town, from a building site, yeah. And now I've thrown myself into this arena, and I was just shocked. And from that, there was 50 of us. The videos of us getting beaten in the streets, of all the coaches getting smashed up, the Muslims running riot, attacking everyone. They went viral online on football messaging boards across the country. We then saw in Longsight in Manchester, Muslims had bought a church, and they were bulldozing over the graves, the Christian graves. They're just bulldozing them. Like that, they own the church. They own the church now, turn it into a mosque, desecrating these graves. So we said, right, we're coming to Manchester. And I remember turning up that day in Manchester. We didn't know what to expect, and 2,000 young English men were there, ready and waiting. And that mentality of the English Defence League not backing down was born because of the actions at the start of it. It's like it was never going to be female 30-year-old school teachers who took on radical jihadists in the UK. It was young, willing men that weren't going to back down, and if they needed to, would fight.
Now, you get called an Islamophobe. I mean, the words actually mean so little today that when there's actual bona fide racist anti-Semites, Islamophobes, you don't know who they are because they've called too many people the same name. It's an open question, but you seem to draw a distinction between radical Islam and Islam as a religion in general. You seem to be describing of the English Defence League or the young men. Doesn't sound like it's ethnically homogeneous. First question first, second question after that. I mean, for those who call you an Islamophobe, how do you respond in a way that they could somehow be convinced?
I don't care about convincing them anymore. I don't care about convincing them. So a phobia is an irrational fear. The things I talk about, or the reality of Islam, remember, I've studied Islam. I've studied the tenets of Islam. I've studied jihad. I know about all of it. The problems I talk about are not irrational. We have had, in the UK, 4 times as many British Muslims joined ISIS than have ever joined the armed forces. We have 40,000 British Muslims on a terror watch list. 3,000 of them are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at a cost of £9 billion. The last 6 terrorist attacks come from people not in that top 3,000. Yeah? So we have a problem. Right? It's not a phobia to say, hold on a minute. Right? We have had, when you look at the grooming gangs, in 65 cities now, these gangs, Muslim men make up 2% of the UK population. They are responsible for 90% of the convictions of gangs of men who have raped young kids. Gangs of men, yeah? 30% of the men convicted are called Mohammed. Why? Why? You're not allowed to ask the question. It's like, why? I draw the distinction between ordinary Muslims, yeah? Or I draw the distinction between Muslims and Islam. Muslims are people. If you hate people, it's bad, because there's some great people and there's bad people. Islam, the Quran, yeah, that is your right. We need to understand it. 70% of the Quran talks about us and how they need to treat us. We need to have a view on it. We need to be able to discuss it. So this Islamophobe, why is it, and the whole racist tag, if I criticize Christianity, everyone would celebrate me as some atheist, yeah? But Christian, try and criticize Islam, and it's given protection, some special sort of protection that deems you a racist or an Islamophobe to try and prevent you talking about it. Now, the reason we're in such a mess, the reason you're in such a mess in Canada, in America, in the West, is because of people who have pushed these words to silence people. Legitimate criticism has been taken away from us. So when they take away legitimate criticism, these problems have got out of control. We now have hundreds of thousands of people marching for Hamas. We now have such big problems that the numbers are insane. So when I look at all this, I don't care about people who call me an Islamophobe. The word racist was used for years. And so your listeners understand, at every single English Defence League rally, every single one, a non-white person spoke. Yeah, it was not about, we wasn't even against immigration. I made sure, yeah, big reason being, my mum was an immigrant. Most people I love are immigrants, yeah. We spoke about Islam. And when you said, I don't draw the distinction, though, unfortunately, I believe Islam is extreme. I believe Islam is the problem. I don't believe Muslims are the problem, but Islam is a problem. And the reason being, people say now Islamism, and it's okay to be against Islamists. Muhammad, the Prophet, was an Islamist, okay? He waged war with the sword. He pushed Islam with violence. He beheaded 600 people in one day. He was a barbarian warlord. And we cannot say that he was perfect and say that he was a moral compass for anyone. Yeah, we need to criticize this. And so I talk openly and honestly. I've never shifted my views. They've never shifted once. Even from, bro, in 2004, when I wrote that leaflet and I held that demonstration, when I gave a seminar at Oxford University in 2015, I got the leaflet from the front page of the newspaper just to show you what I was saying in 2004. What I was saying, yeah, is that I don't have a problem with Muslims, yeah, but the growth and the extremism that we're seeing is out of control. And the way the council and police just don't deal with it. They do not deal with it. They accommodate it. And then all of a sudden, all the things I'd said from forming the English Defence League in 2009, we went bang, we went to Manchester, thousands. And then at that point, it was hard not to have street clashes because the Muslims were coming out in their thousands to attack us everywhere we went. Yeah. And we were talking about issues. I remember, if you look now, there's a Telford's become quite a prominent city. Rotherham's become a prominent city for these grooming gangs. I can dig you up demonstrations of us in 2010 marching through those cities, screaming Muslim pedos off our streets. At this point, no one knew. It was never public knowledge. In fact, they did know. Government knew, journalists knew, police knew. Everyone knew that our daughters were being kidnapped and raped, but no one spoke about it. So as time's gone on, you introduced me as the most hated and most loved man. I was the most hated man for many years. I took punches on the nose regularly, attacked regularly. That has changed. It has totally shifted where the public have realised all of the things I was saying have come into fruition and been factual. All of them have been true. They weren't born out of hate. Nothing we've done is born out of hate. We're Englishmen who love our country, who want to protect our country, and who want our daughters and our children to have the same safe and prosperous nation that we had. And unfortunately, it's gone totally to the pits. And cowardice has led us to that point. Total cowardice. So yeah, on the Islamophobe, I don't recognise the word Islamophobe. There is no such word to me. I understand anti-Muslim if you're an anti-Muslim bigot, which when Lee Rigby got beheaded, our soldier was beheaded in 2011. At my first speech, 10,000 English Defence League supporters, I pointed out that many Muslims serve in our armed forces, and that if you abuse a Muslim woman walking down the street, you're a coward, an absolute coward. Yeah, we must differentiate between decent people and the problems we face. Now, I think Muslims are victims of Islam. I believe many of them are just cultural Muslims. They're not following the book to the word. If they start following that book to the word, we have a problem.
The grooming gangs started. So you said your cousin when you were 13. So this is now you're 39 years old.
I'll take that. I'm 41.
41. Okay, so this has been going on since you were a kid, and it was the demographic of it hasn't changed much, I presume. Is there any reason that you can think of other than cowardice is one, but I think this has to be deeper. What accounted for the institutional covering up or ignoring of the problem? Is it like the no-go zones like they have in France are just too much for the police to infiltrate, or are the powers that be also involved in this activity?
It's not the no-go zones, because in many of the cities, I've done a 5-part series called The Rape of Britain. You can get it on Rumble. It's amazing journalism, amazing investigative journalism, where I spent 12 to 18 months with 12 of the survivors of these gangs. Yeah? And I went into the town of Telford specifically because Telford has a 1.7% Muslim population. So I could get right into it. Yeah? I got the names of 254 suspects. The police identified 200. In the police investigation into Telford, they identified 200. They identified 1,000 victims. 5 are dead. 5 of the victims are dead. Yeah? One little town. Right? So you got 1,000 victims. The police identified 200 men. I identified 254 names. An independent inquiry identified 360. There's only 3,500 Muslims in that town. Yeah? Only 1,000 men who fit that age bracket. What we're talking about in that small town is 20 to 30% of the Muslim men in that town were involved in the rape, prostitution and torture of young girls. You're not talking about a handful here. This is how mainstream it is. They've been supported by their families, by their communities, by their mosques, by their leaders, but in every city in this country. There's not been one incident with the size of the scandal. That town I'm talking about had 1,000 victims. Rotherham had 1,400 victims in a 16-year period. Rotherham only has a 3.7% Muslim population. Remember, my town's 50%. 3.7%. There's none there. So it isn't that these areas are so ghettoized that the police can't deal with it. What it shows you, which people have to really understand, is the power of political correctness. The power of being fearful of being branded racist. How powerful is that? It's that powerful that it paralyzed an entire police force in every town and city in our country to watch. When I say watch, you can read these reports again. Up until 2015, this was Tommy Robinson, the fearmonger. Yeah, as I sat on TV, these interviews have not aged well for the presenters. As I sat there in 2009 and 2010, sitting on TV saying they're taking our daughters, talking about it, I was rubbished. 2015 comes along, a government study. And it come about because of a journalist called Andrew Norfolk. Now, Andrew Norfolk won all awards for his journalism. Yeah, Andrew Norfolk actually says, and I've done a video showing this, that he had to take it back from the far right. By far right, he means ordinary English fathers, yeah, who had had enough. So he said groups were now on the streets screaming about this issue. He had known about it for years. The coward. He's won all these awards. The coward knew that young girls would be being kidnapped and taken, but because, and he says it as well, because it was all Pakistani men and they were all young white victims, no one wanted to touch it. They'd rather just turn a blind eye, ignore it, yeah, because they were fearful of being branded racist. Now, government reports in Rochdale, government reports in Telford, government reports in Oldham, government reports in all of these cities in the investigation have proven police knew. Evidence was they actually threw, girls went in with the DNA clothes and they threw the clothes away. One girl went into a police station and again in Rotherham alone, in Rotherham, two fathers got together. This is I know. So to your listeners, yeah, this sounds unbelievable. Two fathers got together. Their 13-year-old girls were in a house full of Muslim men who were raping them. They went around the house to get their daughters back. The police turned up and arrested the fathers. They took the fathers away. The police turned up in another derelict house where a young 12-year-old girl had 5 Muslim men raping her. They arrested the girl for drunken disorderly and let the men leave. This is what was going on. This was the mindset. Yeah, but what people need to understand, which I've tried to stress to the public, this isn't just with grooming. The way people have seen it now with demonstrations. You've seen how they're policed. They have not been policed. They're scared of them. Now, the reason being cowardice. Also, fear. In 2001, the Muslim community rioted in many cities in this country, blew entire cities up, yeah, over race riots. Since that point, they've basically been given concession after concession after concession to do what they want. Their leaders continually threaten trouble from the youth.
The police, the law enforcement itself, it's still predominantly, I'll say, like, I don't want to say like English versus Muslim, but it's totally. There's no operating theory that any judges, people who are higher up in law enforcement are involved in this, profiting from it, and therefore don't want to prosecute it?
No, I understand what you're saying, obviously, with the high-end paedophile networks, but no, that's not what this was. That's not. So
it's literally political correctness gone to a point. And I remember it breaking at the time because I remember you getting arrested for putting the camera in the guy's face. And I remember at the time it was first denied that they were predominantly from a certain demographic. Now it's on Wikipedia. It's become so mainstream. And I've seen that evolution over time. But literally this went on for so long, and the fear was stigmatizing a segment of the population.
That's the fear. And when I say another city, Manchester, young 15-year-old girl was murdered by the gang. That launched a police investigation. It's probably going back to 2000, early 2000s. Launched a police investigation. Police identify 100 men raping children. Yeah? Get all the evidence. Arrest them all. They arrest them all. And then the trial's due to come up, and the entire case is just collapsed. They just deleted the entire case. Let all the men go. Now, the police officer who headed that was then given the highest reward 6 weeks later from our Queen. Yeah? That we are talking about a level of cover-up that you can't even begin to think about.
Well, I think I know a bit of why the trial was what was the issue that resulted in the trial being, or them being freed and the trial being cancelled?
No, on this one, nothing. On this one in Manchester, they just collapsed the trials. We don't believe we'll get prosecutions. They've done a whole investigation, arrested all the men, and then deleted it. And the top police officer that headed that, then won a top reward from our Queen. Yeah. So this is the level of cover up that's going on, because one of them, and remember that they were still hiding all this. So this was still being hid until 2000. If you look, the English Defence League forms in 2009. Yeah. Arrests for the sexual exploitation of young children is literally a line. Yeah? I've done a graph. 2009 English Defence League forms. By 2010, 2011, it just goes through the roof. Yeah. By this point, the same people, government, the highest institutions in our country, who have known this is going on in every town and city, who have allowed it, who have not just allowed it, but silenced any critics, any whistleblowers were deleted and lost their jobs, and everyone's been silenced. And then they've got, so I say, when people talk about the English Defence League, they may not give us credit for it, but when they had 3, 4, 5, 6,000 young men going into city centres that have these communities and ragingly angry about it and screaming about it, not just when they had that, but when the world's media, because we were such an explosion in the English Defence, we become a household name in pretty much every country, yeah, because we were causing so many dramas across the UK, and they didn't know how to police us, because we happened so quick, so fast. It was so organic, because the feeling, what I didn't realise is all the things I'd seen in Luton, everyone had seen in their own towns. So everyone had been silenced. All of a sudden, when someone just went, right, bang, let's go, everyone at the same time just went with it. So the level of cover-up was that large. The things they done to these girls, we're not talking about sexual gratification. We're talking, so again, one young girl, she had they heated up an iron rod with the letter M on it, 11 years old, and they scolded her bum because she was the property Mohammed. They took another young girl and they nailed her tongue to a table. They took these young girls out. They were horrifically tortured, abused, raped, and murdered. And the entire establishment knew, and didn't just know, but allowed it to happen. This is the darkest stain there will ever be on our history. Yeah, an entire generation. And let me tell you what they're doing. Yeah, which we'll get onto the court case why I was arrested and put in prison. An entire generation of our daughters were handed over. Not just handed over. One dad I met with made 200 999 calls. And the thing I get passionate about, I get upset about, because I've travelled this country and I've sat with these families. One dad, they rang him, a father and son rang him while they were raping his daughter. Imagine sitting and listening to two men raping your daughter, and the police do nothing for you. Every services and every institution that was there to protect those children failed. Everyone who was meant to help the families failed. They didn't just fail them, they treated them as the bad guys, them as the racists. So it frustrates me, it angers me with what I've seen. It's a devastating story of abuse. But remember, we have moved, yeah, because
how many victims of these grooming gangs over the years are we talking about? I mean,
we're talking about 1 million girls. We're talking about 1 million girls. Someone's done the numbers on it. We're talking 1,000 just in Telford. Telford's a small little town. No one's there. Yeah? 1,400 in Rotherham. Right? We are talking, and this is why they hide the numbers, yeah? Because this is why you'll never get the figures for the other towns. And what they're doing is, out of the 200 men identified by the police in Telford, they arrested 11. What about the other 189? You've identified them. How are they not under arrest? This is when you see how vast the problem is. So literally, our government, our police are just doing little arrests of groups of men, and then the public are being lied to still to believe this problem has been dealt with and tackled, and it hasn't at all. The problem's so big, no one can even comprehend in their mind how big this problem is and how many people have been affected by these rape gangs. And to call it grooming, they even give it a little pretty name, grooming. No, you groom a dog. Yeah, this is rape jihad. These men, and again, I give a presentation in Russia. You can watch it, where I went through what the men say. Yeah, not what I say. One Muslim man in the case in Bristol said it was his religious duty to do it. Other men referred to the Quran. Other men lay their country's flags over the girls while they all gang raped them. This was, because you hear a lot about hate crime, don't we, at the minute? We hear a lot about hate crime. This is the only real hate crime. The real hate crime. Not someone saying something about a tranny online, or someone making a stupid comment and getting their door kicked off. It's like there's been 3,500 people arrested last year for making comments on social media. You ain't even nicking the paedophiles or the rapists. So it absolutely angers me. It frustrates me with what I've witnessed. The only thing is, they started off calling them Asian. Yeah, they're not Asian. And so you understand a bit of the history of these gangs as well. In the 1980s, they were targeting the Sikh community. Yeah, the Sikh community were targeted, and I dug up news footage. I found news footage from the 80s of Sikhs saying to the news cameras, "They're coming up the schools in the cars and getting our girls." Yeah, the Sikhs then formed a gang called Shira Punjab. Yeah, I think it's the line of Punjab. Yeah, Shira Punjab, and each Sikh, it formed out of one area in Birmingham, but volunteers, men had to go forward as volunteers from temples to defend their daughters. So when a Sikh girl was taken, even up until today, this group still rolls. Yeah, when a Sikh girl is taken, 200 or 300 Sikh men will turn up in that town, and they will go to the mosque. And there has been blood spilt across the UK from Sikhs defending their daughters. They knew what to do very early on, and they formed a resistance to it. Many of them have gone to jail for many years in prison for protecting their own daughters from these gangs. What the Muslim community then done, from targeting the Sikh girls, they went for the easier targets, the white community. That's what. So this wasn't just about them targeting young white girls. They went for the Sikhs, but they met a resistance. The Sikh community, to this day, and I have the utmost respect for them in the way they've handled this and organised themselves, they came out in defence and they fought. And unfortunately, they knew the police wouldn't do anything. Even in the interviews in 1980, they're saying the police aren't helping us. Why are the police not helping us? These men are coming and taking our daughters. So the unwillingness by the police to tackle these gangs, but these gangs, you can look at the unwillingness of the police to tackle these grooming gangs. You can look at the unwillingness to tackle jihad, to tackle terrorist organisations, to tackle heroin gangs, all the aspects that come from the Islamic community, even female genital mutilation. Yeah, 55,000 British girls have had their genitals mutilated. The first prosecution come last week, like the first one in the last few weeks. Yeah, that has been a 10-year or 14-year prison sentence since the 90s, but not one parent's been prosecuted. Why not? Because, and the reality being, bro, 55,000 young girls who have been targeted. If you prosecuted their parents for cutting off their genitals, which they should be prosecuted for, and these are Muslim children, British Muslim children, if you prosecuted their parents, there wouldn't be one single prison space left in the UK just for trying to deal with that. These problems are so big, they can't financially deal with them. We don't have the prison space to deal with them. We treat them with cultural sensitivity and allow the systematic rape, torture, or barbaric torture of young children has been accommodated through total cowardice.
I'm fact checking. I'm just double checking things in the back while you.
I am a encyclopedia of facts.
Well, now, now let's get into. First of all, when was the first time you ever got arrested? Did you have anything from childhood?
No, I had my first offence when I was 19, 20. So I left school and qualified as an aeronautical engineer, and then I had a fight. Story of my life. I had a fight with an off-duty police officer, and I was convicted. I got 12 months in jail. So I come out of prison, I'd lost my career. But then by the time I started the English Defence League, I had 2 successful businesses, and with my partner, we were into property, 7 properties between us. And then I'd had no arrests. I started the English Defence League. In the first 6 months, my doors were kicked off 3 times. 3 times I was raided in the first 6 months, given conditions, false arrests, false raids, armed police. This was what we're seeing is the actions of a totalitarian state, using the police to terrorise people. It had the adverse effect on me from day one. When they come into my mum's house, I was furious that they'd gone into my mum's house and disrespected my mum and my family in that way for nothing. And basically what they'd done is, we had the English Defence League, which was a problem for the authorities. We were setting up the Scottish Defence League. When I got to Luton Airport to travel to Scotland, I was arrested by Special Branch. And when they arrested me, they then said, we're arresting you for criminal damage. Now, you know, in a hotel room, you have a little bit of a door that joins the door together. Yeah? This is and I've put in Tommy Robinson York speech. Yeah, this bit because I've got the case. Yeah, so it's £30. Like, so they arrested me for criminal damage, and then they said, we're raiding properties linked to you. They went to my mum's, they went to my family's house, my children. They come in with guns where my family are. This is all to terrorise us, yeah? And it worked because my wife would never take the kids to the school again. My whole family were crying. Yeah, they're saying, Stephen, stop, please stop. Yeah, I said, well, that's what they want. That's why they're doing this. Like, that's why they're doing it. But then they arrested me, and they arrested me for this criminal damage where they said I broke £30 damage on a hotel room that I stayed in the north of England. When I got out, they gave me bail conditions not to contact the English Defence League. My bail date, we were due to hold a rally in Yorkshire. This is 6 months into the English Defence League. We were holding a rally in Yorkshire, where Rotherham is, to talk about grooming. Yeah? My bail date that I had to attend the police station was the same time as the rally that we had booked. So I put in a complaint. I wasn't allowed to send an email. That was my conditions, yeah, for this criminal damage. Right? I put in a complaint to the IPCC, the Independent Police Complaints Commission, saying, I believe this is politically motivated. I believe you've chose the date to arrest me to stop me setting up the Scottish Defence League. I believe, and I went through all these allegations, they upheld all of them. They sent the police are going on training courses. But by the time they dropped the case after 4 months, 5 months, they got what they wanted. They stopped the Scottish Defence League formation. They stopped me talking at the demonstration. It actually turned out that there was no criminal damage by me. They didn't care. They made up and fabricated a charge to send 30 police officers to my family home.
Tommy, 5 years ago, I would say this is absurd. Maybe even before Trump's indictments, I'd say this sounds too absurd to be true. They arrest you for whatever, even if it's £1,000 of criminal damage. They release you on these bail conditions, which I presume none of the groomers, for lack of a better word, ever got anything similar. Hardened criminals don't get anything similar. At the time, at the time, what do you think? What are you possibly thinking? Like, how absurd this can be? Are you shocked, or is this? Are you expecting this from the system?
Well, at the time, no. I knew. As I said, I used a fake name. I knew I would have threats against my life from Islamic jihadists and gangs. I never knew. And I was never ready for the state. And that's my biggest worry now, is not Muslims or radical jihadists. My problem now is what the state have planned and what they're planning to do.
Well, I had, not to say it's not a new thought in your head, but I said when they put you in jail for however many months you ended up serving, it was not to punish you. It was to put you in a vulnerable position for someone to do something. Now let's get there, because you end up in jail for breach of publication ban, which was a violation of your suspended or your stayed sentence. This goes back to the trial. So finally we get to, like, what year is it? 2015 that they're finally starting to hold trials?
This is 2017. So they started holding trials then. It comes out in 2015, public knowledge. There's trials popping up across the country. You see all the stats and the statistics I just gave you, and the details about the girl getting the M on the bum, all these, the girl getting the tongue nailed, the dad's getting arrested. All of these things were coming out because we had 6-week trials. So journalists were sitting in court, and all the gory details of what the men were doing to the girls was getting reported each day. So it was hitting the news. It's big news. Yeah? Then they thought, how do we stop this? So we're going to arrest them. We're going to prosecute handfuls of them. Put reporting restrictions on every one of their cases. So there can be no reporting. So the case can go on for 4 to 6 weeks. No one's allowed to report it. When the case finishes and 20 men are convicted, 1 day's news. So they got around it. And then do you know what else they done? Yeah. And this is so people understand, because this will be erased from our history of our country. The transcripts for court cases are only held for 5 years. Yeah. Then they're deleted. So all these cases are going on now that have reporting restrictions, where we're not getting the details of the exact details of what happened in those cases. Yeah? In 5 years' time, they're deleted from history. We'll never know. The people who pick up the books in 30 years' time or 40 years' time to look at what happened here will never be able to find the exact details of what happened in each one of these cases, because they're going to be deleted. So they put reporting restrictions on them. And that's what I then went to report. I'm a reporter. The judge under Section 4.2, in fact, I'm making a documentary now called Lawfare. Yeah? It's about my recent arrest. I don't know if you saw it, where I was arrested reporting on an anti-Semitism rally in London. Yeah, I'm noticing people are calling you a Zionist shill in the chat. Tommy. That basically means that I don't hate Jews. Yeah? That's basically what it means. I've had this stance, and so you can understand it. Let me get to that point. So I've grown up in Luton, where there are no Jews. The old synagogue is now the Luton Islamic Centre, the terrorist centre. Yeah, it's the terrorist mosque. But it was the old synagogue, but the Jews were driven out. I remember watching, and as Jewish families tried to remember the Holocaust in my town, and they had to barricade themselves inside the town hall because of the attack from jihadists. Yeah? So I've watched the problems that Jews face. I've grown up with Muslims who talk very openly about their hatred of Jews. When I started the English Defence League, I made a point of speaking about Israel. This was going back to 2009. Yeah? People say, oh, you're getting paid for them. No one has to pay me to make a choice against jihad. Yeah? Hamas are a jihadist organization. Hamas come out the day after October 7th and said, we're coming for the Christians and we're coming for Europe. That's what Hamas said. All you pro-Palestinian waving morons, yeah, don't understand that if Israel falls, you saw how we've all seen how excited they got over killing 1,400 Jews. If they wiped out Israel, what do you think they're coming for? Yeah? Don't you see what they're doing? It's not a battle. It's not a war of land. This has got nothing to do with land. Hamas, Fatah, all these different Islamic fronts and jihadist terrorist organizations. If Israel wasn't there, they'd all be at war with each other anyway. They'd all be at war with each other. So that's my aspect of it. I stand with. I believe it's like, and I make this point again. If I talk about Canadian people and standing with the Canadian people, doesn't mean I don't think Justin Trudeau and the cabal that are governing that country, I hate them. Yeah. Joe Biden and the people who are controlling the United States and trying to start war with Russia and all these different things, the illegalities that they're doing, doesn't mean I can't love and support the American people. What I say is, yeah, I love and support the Israeli people, the Jewish people in Israel, the Christian people in Israel, the 2 million Muslims that actually live in Israel. I went there. Yeah, I support them. I support them because they're surrounded by totalitarian, Islamic, Sharia-driven shitholes who wish to wipe them off the face of the planet. And they've already been told before the 7-day war by all the leaders of the country surround them, we're going to rape your women and take them as sexual slaves. So I do not blame them for wanting to fight, defend themselves. And I look at it like if I was a small country like Great Britain and every country surrounding us was governed by terrorists and they were firing rockets at us daily, we'd defend ourselves. So that gets around the... I'm a Zionist, yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I just find it funny because on the one hand you get called an anti-Semite and a bigot because of your connection to the EDL, and on the other hand you get called a Zionist. So this is why the words mean actually nothing.
The words mean nothing because now what's happened is the general racists have aligned themselves with the Islamists, the beardy weirdies, the jihadists, have all joined together because they have the hatred for Jews. And then anyone who doesn't hate Jews is then just attacked. Basically, that's what I see as happening. But I don't really care.
So the trial is going on in 2015, or they start in 2015. I didn't realize the extent of the publication bans, that there was only a limited period of time for reporting afterwards. What are the victims? Are the victims gagged, judicially speaking, after the trials are over? Do they talk about it?
Some of them have. Some of them have gone on to talk about it with news. The same newspapers that condemn me and criticize me then were forced to start reporting on these issues. And so 2017 comes, there's a reporting restriction on a trial. Now, the judge has no power to put a reporting restriction on the information that's already in the public domain. So in my latest film I'm making now, I cover this case to prove to people I didn't break no law. Yeah? I went to work in the morning, traveled to work in my car, drove 2 hours, kissed my family goodbye, going to work, go outside the court. Muslim men are coming in. I've been on a training course at this point because I'm a citizen journalist, put myself on a training course with the best law firm in London to understand how to operate as a journalist around courts because I didn't know at the start. Yeah, I didn't know at the start. So I went on this course. Not to assume guilt is important. So when the men were coming in, I said, look, these men might be innocent. They may walk out of here with not guilty verdicts, but these men are alleged to have committed these crimes against this many girls. And I read the men's names, and all of the stuff I read was from a BBC News website because they'd already reported it. What a point I was making is to the public is these cases are going on up and down the country and you have no knowledge of them. Yeah? And then the judge summons me from outside court into court. I was arrested. I went into court and I was sentenced to 13 months in prison. And I stood there. I wasn't asked to plead guilty or not guilty. I then, 3-4 hours later, I'm in HMP Hull prison. I rang my wife. I said, all right, I'm in jail. She said, what? I said, yeah, I'm in prison. Just got 13 months. She thought I was joking. I said, I'm in jail. Just got 13 months. Then the judge put a reporting restriction on anyone being able to report. I just got 13 months. So,
but just back, because I know the rationale in the media was that you got 13 months because you were on a suspended sentence from a prior contempt charge.
No, nonsense. The prior contempt card was a 3-month suspended sentence, and that was for standing. So one of the laws is if you're reporting at court, you're not allowed to stand on the court property. And I stood on the court steps and live streamed. That was it. That was it. Now,
I saw that. I remember seeing that.
And in that case, right, this is the insanity of this country. Basically, I'd been told that 5 men had raped a young girl. She had got drunk. She was 14 years old. She'd gone into a kebab shop. They took her upstairs to a mattress. And all of them had raped her. All of their DNA was found on her. in every orifice and every hole she had. Yeah, she was totally obliterated by them. Yeah? Then she was found walking down the street crying. They made arrests. Then, so these men were on bail for this case. So I looked at the chicken shop. They just changed the name. So I got told they're still running the same chicken shop. So I went up to the city and I walked and I stood outside the shop at the end of the school day. And school children were going in the shop. So I just thought, no, how the hell is this going on? Right? They're the men that are on bail for raping this girl. They just changed the name of their shop. So that the purpose of me going to the court was to make a video to simply say, these men, and show them, so the people in the town know, are alleged to have raped this young child. All of those men got 20 years in jail. Yeah, the day after. But what they've done is when I went to the court, I went home. I've done this video. I went home. My door got raided at 5 o'clock next morning. Police come in, dragged me down to the court, and I stood before the judge who said, what are you doing? I said, well, did you give these men bail? That's what they're embarrassed about. I said, who gave the men bail? Yeah, because there's DNA evidence. I've looked through the case. There's DNA evidence. They've raped a child. Why? One of them absconded. One of them left the country. Right? Who gave them bail? And then she gave me a 3-month suspended sentence. So she gave me a 3-month suspended sentence but that wasn't. So obviously I got 13 months. Yeah, outside the court, I got 10 months for asking. I asked the man, "How do you feel about your verdict?" So I asked him, "How do you feel about your verdict?" And they changed the laws twice of what they prosecute me. They originally arrested me for breaching the reporting restriction. Then I got 13 months in jail. I'm put into prison. Obviously, this blows up because in Canada, Ezra Levant, Rebel Media, American news, people started reporting that he's in jail. Yeah, and anyone who watched my live stream, the whole thing's still out there. Yeah. I was not aggressive. They said I was aggressive. I was asking them very calmly, how do you feel about your verdict? I was doing what every other journalist does at a court case. And they tried to say I breached reporting restriction. But by the time I got to the next trial, because I appealed it, they didn't have a power to put a reporting restriction. Everything I said was in the public domain. You can't stop that. Yeah? But that didn't matter. So the idea was they sent me to jail. I had to then sit in prison and watch the TV as they said, as it come up, I pleaded guilty. I thought, I didn't plead guilty. I know I didn't plead guilty. And I've got all these people, even Nigel Farage, sat on TV justifying why I should be in prison.
And stop it here for 1 second, because people need to understand this. It blew my mind at the time. You get arrested the day of. Within 4 hours, you're sentenced to 13 months in jail.
2 hours. 2 hours.
How the hell? I mean, it's beyond Orwellian North Korean. I think at least Otto Warmbier had a longer process. What the hell happens? They take you, accuse you of breaching a publication ban.
Just said this straight away, still out. And I said, when they took me in, I said, I want my lawyer. I want to speak to my lawyer. Yeah? I have my own solicitor. No, you can't. So then they put some duty. I said, I don't want him. Yeah? So all this is on record. I don't want him. I want my solicitor. I want to talk to my solicitor. No, you can't. And then they just marched me into the court and he sentenced me to 13 months.
Had you known this judge from before?
No, never. No, I've never been to the city. I've never been to the city. And this was, remember, at this moment, my journalism, yeah, I'm out on the street doing journalism. I'm making small videos. I'm going to demonstrations. I was watched by 69 million people in 4 weeks, my videos. I exploded. I'd say I was probably the most watched journalist in the world at that time. This was get rid. And he got rid of me. And then, not just did he get rid of me, but they sentenced me to jail. I was put in a prison called H&P Hole, and I believe the actions of the general public saved my life, totally saved my life, because 660,000 people signed a petition demanding that I be released. President Trump had Ambassador Brownback, I believe, contact the British government and demand my safety in prison because they removed me. So they put me in H&P Hole, which has a 5% Muslim population. I'm in there for 2 weeks. I was in there one day and the prison officer come in and said, they're climbing the gates of Downing Street. And I went, what? He said, it is going wild out here because of your arrest. Obviously, I'm not seeing anything, yeah. But I thought he can't be right. Yeah? Then I heard that 660,000 people, the petition was going through the roof. Then 30,000 people marched on Parliament. Then they come in and got me from H&P Hole, 5% Muslim population. I was on the hospital wing they put me on. I was fine. Yeah, I was out of my cell for 2 hours a day. Then they come and took me to.
Sorry, just one more thing before I don't want to get. You get in front of a judge. They say he's accused of doing this.
The judge hadn't even watched the video. The judge hadn't. I've got the track. I'm looking at it for this next documentary. The judge hadn't even watched the video.
But does he deliberate before determining 13 months? Does he issue a written judgment to explain how he comes to 13 months? The
reason it took us 11 weeks to get to an appeal, and they had to free me because nothing he done was lawful. Nothing he done was lawful. But they tried to stop the appeal. They moved me. Each time. So I'm sitting in H&P Hall. I've got my legal meeting with my barrister 3 weeks in. So I'm saying my legal meeting say on a Tuesday. Monday, they just come in. You're going. I said, where am I going? They said, you're going to another jail. I said, but I'm fine here. So what jail am I going to? Is it sorted for me where I'm going? Obviously, and I say this because Muslim jihadist gangs run every prison in the UK. Yeah, H&P Hall didn't have many at all, like 5%. And then they come and got me, and they said they wouldn't tell me where I was going. They put me in a security van, and then they take me, and then I'm sitting there waiting, thinking, where am I off to? And I land at H&P Onley. Onley has the highest concentration of Muslims in any prison in the UK. And I sat there thinking, like, why? Like, how? How can they make this decision? Yeah? And bearing in mind, my legal meeting was the next day. So it took 3 weeks to get a legal meeting. My legal meeting is the next day. Now I haven't got my legal meeting. Now I'm in another prison. Yeah, and this is my legal meeting trying to appeal the illegal practice they've just done. So I get to my next prison, and I walk into the prison, and I meet, and the governor and another, they come to see me and say, yeah, you're not going to be safe here. I said, well, no shit, Sherlock. Like, why have you brought me here? And they said, you're going to have to self-isolate. And I said, I'm not self-isolating. They said, well, you're going to have to. You're going to get killed. And I said, if you put me on that wing, I'm going to walk out that door. Yeah? That's your problem. I'm going to walk out the door, and I'm telling you, I'm going to defend myself to the extreme. I will defend myself if I have to. Why have you brought me here? And at that point, then they're faced with, they said, so you're not going to self-isolate? I said, why would I self-isolate? Why would I lock myself? Because just so you understand, prison regime in the UK, you're out of your cell about 8 hours. You can work, you can play pool, you can have exercise, you can go gym, all these different things. Yeah, self-isolation. What that means is you just lock yourself in your cell 24 hours a day. You say you're scared, and they lock your door for 24 hours. Yeah, I said, oh, I'm not doing that. It's just not happening. Right? I'm not doing that. So then they forcefully put me in the punishment section of the jail. So they bring me down to the block. It's called the block. So if you stab someone in jail, you go to the block. Now, when you walk into a cell in the block, there is no TV, there's no electricity, there's just a blue mat. So I'm landing in this jail, look at the blue mat, and the funny thing is the World Cup was on in a week. England were on in a week. So my other thing is I shouldn't be in jail. I'm football mad. Yeah. If I'm on the wing, right, taking my chance. If I was on the wing, I've got a TV as well. Yeah. So they put me down the block, and then I say, well, I'm not eating or drinking. So I said, like, you shouldn't have took me here. And then so I'm in there for a week, and you have to have a meeting every day with the governor. I just said, why am I here? Like, who's made the decision to bring me to this prison? Yeah? And what I think has happened, and this is what I believe truthfully has happened, and I'll tell you why, because in other prisons, they've let them, I had my teeth knocked out in Wood Hill prison. I was literally handed to them, the Muslims. Yeah? But why I believe that it happened is on the outside of all of this, they probably thought, put him in jail. It's an easy job. Let him go on the wing. He's too proud. He's never going to lock himself away. He's going to get done. Yeah. And I would get killed. Yeah. And they know that. So, but that's what I think. And then the outpouring by the British public, 30,000 people marched on Parliament. They were protesting every town and city, protests in Sydney, in Australia, in America. Congressman Paul Gosar flew in to a UK protest with Geert Wilders, the now Dutch, who just won the Dutch elections. He flew in with Philip de Winter, who's going to win the Belgium elections, hopefully, bro. So he's going to win the Belgium elections. They all flew in and demanded my release outside Parliament with 30,000 people. At this point, I remember writing a letter saying, I truthfully believe you've secured my life. Like, I truthfully believe. And that's because I've been through this prison system. And at that point, they were forced then just to put me on solitary confinement. So I was held on solitary confinement. They blocked another legal visit. So by the time I got my legal visit, I've been in jail 6 weeks. It's like, I want to, and I had to put in an extension to the appeal because you only have a certain amount of time to appeal. And we had to say, well, no, you haven't let us see him. I haven't been able to see my lawyers. Even when they bought them for a 2-hour meeting, I had 40 minutes. My QC said when he got to court, it's outrageous what has gone on here with us trying to see our client. They were trying to block it. So finally, I'm in jail. My solicitor hasn't even told me there's the appeal dates come up. I don't even know the appeal dates come up. I spend a week on solitary confinement. So I'm on solitary confinement in the, and this, they give me an arrest for this. So in the block, this area of the prison, all the cells are squared like this, and there's a little courtyard in the middle. And for 30 minutes a day, that's your 30 minutes. You get out and you walk for 30 minutes in a square where all the other prisoners are looking at your window. That's all Muslims. I walked out first day. I said, Islam is the cancer. I am the cure, lads. Yeah. And they give me a nicking. They nick me for inciting religious hatred. But in the end, I end up having a bit of laugh with those Muslim prisoners as well. But they give me the nicking. I go before the governor each day. I say, I'm not eating or drinking. I will end up in hospital. Yeah. And when I end up in hospital, it's on your head to the governor. And after 7 days, you have to see him each day because of your health when you're in solitary confinement. So then he comes in and he says, right, Tommy, Stephen, sign this bit of paper and we will put you on the wing. Yeah. But you're signing for self-isolation. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not signing for self-isolation. I'm that stubborn and bitter. I said, I'm not doing it. And he said, well, you're going back to your cell then. I said, I'll go back to my cell. Puts me back in my cell. Then he pulls me back in. He said, okay, we've changed the wording. We're isolating you. I said, all right. And then he said, I said, he goes, we're going to put you on the wing. He goes, you'll be allowed out for 30 minutes a day when the rest of the prison is locked up. You'll be walked down here. So between 1 and 2, remember my missus worked at the school at the time. My kids were at school. So I couldn't, as a prisoner, you usually get out in the evening to phone your family. So I weren't even allowed to speak to my family for months. Yeah. So they then said, and then, but all I cared about at the time, you get a TV in your cell if you're on the wing. So he said, if you sign this, you'll go to the cell. And it was England's first game that day, man. I said, what time will I go to the cell? I said, will I make the match? He said, yeah. I said, give me the pen. And I signed it. And then they put me in the cell. And then I watched the England game. But then, when I was in that cell, these are little things, yeah? So this may sound, they knocked on my door, 2 prison officers, said, where's your wife? I said, how am I meant to know where my wife is? Yeah. I don't even get phone calls, right? I get out for my 30 minutes. She's working at school. Why do I know where my wife is? They said, we have intelligence. She's going to be attacked with acid. But I was like, what? And then they just shut the door. Now that was and then I wasn't allowed a phone call. Yeah. So then I don't get my phone call. And when they done that to me, they knocked on my mum's door and they knocked on her door. And they get them bits of paper to say intelligence. So obviously my family are in breakdown. But I don't even know if there was intelligence. I don't know if this is all part of a game or a mind plot to just break you and break your resistance. And to be honest, if you look
to turn your wife against you, to turn your wife and your kids against you as well.
Yeah, to turn them against me or just to cause you mental damage. So if you look at me when I walked into prison, and I obviously didn't realise this at the time. I got out of jail that day and I gave an interview on Tucker Carlson. I was ill. I was seriously ill. I went into jail one person and come out another, a totally different person. From that 11 weeks of solitary confinement, I couldn't eat. So when I went into that jail, the second jail, my door would get opened and I'd get given a tray and it's got my name on it, Yaxley Lennon. Yeah. And the food's prepared by Muslim prisoners. So I just said, I can't eat that. I'm not eating. Yeah. I could only eat tinned food and I had £10 to spend a week. So I had 5 tins of tuna a week. I lost 30 pounds in weight. I come out in a very, very bad place. And on the day, so my appeal gets before the High Court judge. Obviously, I've gone through this case. Because I'm working on this latest documentary, I still cannot believe what they're allowed to do, man. I still cannot believe what they've done. So I come out, it gets before a High Court judge. He looks, I wasn't asked to plead guilty or not guilty. I wasn't even addressed. Yeah. So he looks at it, and because of the flaws in it, he orders my immediate release. Now I'm just laying in jail. I don't even know this is going on. Some lad comes up, bangs on the cell door. Obviously, my door's locked all day. Bangs on the cell door, says, "You're going home." I'm like, "What?" He said, "You're going home." I said, "Fuck off." He goes, "You're going home." I had no idea.
This is you, Tom.
No, that's not the one. So put in Tom Robinson release contempt.
I'm sick. That
I look all right there. I look all right there.
No, hold on. Look, was that you?
That was me, yeah.
Okay.
That was me. That was me. They put me back in jail. They put me back in jail for the same offence. So I get out, and the footage of me coming out, I've got my bags, and I remember people, my supporters, the public was shocked because I look ill. Yeah, I thought I've lost loads of weight. Yeah, I thought I look all right. Right, I thought I look all right. So I'm coming out of jail, and then my cell door goes, and you're going home. I put the news on, breaking news everywhere. Tommy Robinson to be released. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah? And then they get me out on my lunch break. They get me out for my half hour. I ring my solicitor. He goes, Stephen, I didn't want to get your hopes up. We knew last week, like, nothing's legal that they've done. We were just waiting to get into court. I said, so I'm coming home. He goes, you'll be home in a few hours. And my family were due to go on holiday next day. Like, but my mum, my wife's ex-wife's mum had taken the place. And I said, so can I leave the country? He's like, yeah. I said, I'm going on holiday tomorrow, man. I'm going on holiday. So I come out of jail on this appeal. Then the embarrassment to the British establishment that they still want to prove that they're right. Yeah. So they retry me. They take me back to the Old Bailey for the same offence. Now I put in my legal, which I've just been going through everything I took a picture of the courtroom door this day, yeah, which we produced as evidence. I took a picture of the courtroom screen. Because on the judiciary website, it says that if there's a reporting restriction, it has to be registered on the screen and a notice on the door. Well, there was neither. Yeah? But I still didn't break the reporting restriction because it says the judge has no power to put reporting restriction information that's already in public domain. So I prepared my argument. When I went before the highest judge of the Old Bailey, we went before the highest judge of the Old Bailey, produced my evidence, and he looked at it and he just claps the case. And there's a great footage of this. I walk out of court. Thousands are there all singing this song that was created by Owen Benjamin in America about, it's called How They Rule You, and how the establishment rule you and how they imprison you and take your rights. And it was about what had happened with me. So it was an amazing moment. I'm released and the case is gone. I then go on and I go on to create a documentary called Panodrama. Panorama are the BBC's most investigative journalist piece. If you haven't watched this film, you have to. It's the best takedown of the BBC there's ever been. Yeah, so they're creating this documentary, working title Tommy Takedown. The government done, when I come out of jail, the government done research online to see what public opinion of me was. They were terrified. Yeah, my profile had gone through the roof. I'd come out looking very, very ill. Yeah,
tell me if this is one. Tommy, I didn't even recognize you in the first one. I thought I pulled up another Tommy Robinson. Is this the one?
That's me coming out of jail. Yeah,
it's not this. I mean, it's not the same person. I wouldn't say you look.
No, but if you look at the picture of me the day I went to jail, like,
oh no, you're not the same person, but also you look like you have genuine terror in the eyes or a trauma in the eyes. But I might be projecting my own.
I was diagnosed with severe post-traumatic stress disorder after that, but that's again, it's intentional. Yeah. So the maddest thing is, so I come out, I get back to work. I was in a bad place as well. I was ill. I was really ill. I couldn't even how do I say it? I couldn't with my children. I couldn't even have. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to be around people. So I was not in a good place at all. And it took me a long time. Yeah? I was not in a good place. And then I created this. So then I find out that Panorama, who are known for doing investigative journalism, they are the BBC's flagship program. They're doing a takedown of me. So I send a girl undercover into them, wearing a camera. Yeah. What I got, right, finished them. Yeah. I got them planning to make up sexual allegations against me on covert recording. I got him on camera saying it. I got him sitting down telling a girl what to say about me. So they were that worried by my influence. Panorama come in as a documentary piece to destroy my name. Yeah, and so Panorama are doing this investigation into me. I do my own into them. I get lots of covert recordings. Then they contact me to interview me, and on the wall behind me I put a screen. So all their producers are sat there. You've got to watch the footage. It's for absolute gold. Yeah, and I asked him at the start. I said, John, he's the head of Panorama, John Sweeney was his name. He lost his job over this. I said, John, would you ever tell anyone what to say in an interview? Would that be fair journalism? He said, no. I said, you sure? He said, yeah. I said, press play. And the wall behind me was covert recording of him saying, say this, say this, say this, and we'll put that in the documentary. Do we have a deal? Yeah. Then and I went through each thing. John, and I asked him a question. I said, press play, mate. And all the producers are in. I'm looking at the producers, and their heads go in their hands. Yeah, and I sit there like, And they weren't just doing that. They were working with a far left extremist organisation who were blackmailing my old employees. So I got all the recordings and proof of it. They sexually assaulted someone. This far left organisation are called Hope Not Hate. They operate as a government NGO, a George Soros funded organisation. The police can't pay people, neither can the media. So the media can't take someone and pay them £20,000 to say so. They come in, they pay them. Then they sit the person who says what they want them to say on TV, and it's pumped around the world. So they got my old employees. This is what they were doing. But I got all the covert recordings that proved it. Yeah? I got all the evidence of it. So then I sat there and asked Panorama, if you're the BBC, were Hope Not Hate present in the interviews of my ex-employees? Because they're interviewing my ex-employees to get my ex-employees to say things about me that they could put on TV. And when my ex-employees didn't say what they wanted enough, they took them outside and threatened them and blackmailed them again. So they're being blackmailed and intimidated by a government organisation that they're terrified of, told they'll be put in prison to just sit. They wanted them to slam me. They were trying to build me as a Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, but I got all this on covert recordings. And when I played it, I then created my own documentary. Their Panorama never come out. John Sweeney was put on gardening leave. After 9 months, he was fired. I then created this documentary called Panodrama. I hired the biggest screen you can buy in the UK, 50 metres, and I played it outside the BBC's head office. 48 hours later, I was deleted from every social media, and the Attorney General contacted my lawyer and re-prosecuted me on the case from a year before. The case that they've already done me for, that's been kicked from the Old Bailey from the top judge. So I'm thinking, well, how are they going to do me on it when the top judge has already refused it? Yeah? And originally they said I breached the reporting restriction, which is now proven that I didn't breach the reporting restriction because all the evidence says I didn't. So what they did is 2 weeks before I was due in court, they removed the head judge of the Old Bailey. They replaced him with Dame Victoria Sharp, a new judge. She was put in position for my trial. I went before the judge. I was offered a deal to plead guilty and I would go home because they had to find me guilty because in the public's eyes, this was such a wrong, what they'd done. So they wanted me to accept guilt so then they could say that's what I was in jail because he done it, because he did do something wrong. I refused, yeah, which was difficult because I was obviously worried. I'm scared of jail in the sense that I could get killed as well. I had a bad time last time. So I go before the judge. Now, in the video, it's insane. In the video, outside court in Leeds, what I say is I'm addressing journalists. And I say to the journalists, I said, look, instead of harassing me, right, why don't you go and follow these guys? Harass these guys. These guys are alleged to rape children. Go to their works, go to their families, stop doing it to the people talking about it. Yeah? The judge said that I called for vigilante attacks, just never happened. Yeah? Called for vigilante attacks against the Muslim men and that I was aggressive. Again, anyone who's seen the video knows this didn't happen. This is the level of corruption. Yeah. So I get before the judge, then I'm sentenced to another 9 months jail. And it's like, what? And I sit in prison and I think, because she's told everyone I've called for vigilante attacks, the bit where I'm addressing the media and I'm saying to the media, why don't you go harass them? Why don't you stop following us? They just cut, go and harass them, go after them. And then they told the public, which again, I'm showing everyone this, the lie. It's such a lie, yeah? It's such a diversion of the truth. It's so corrupt. And the media don't act. Any media or journalists that were fair and balanced would say, he didn't say that, he didn't do that. Yeah. So they couldn't put me in jail on the first thing. So what she said was, I was aggressive. I was convicted of causing those paedophiles to feel uncomfortable by asking them how they felt about their verdict. Now, when I went into court, I showed the judge video of 20 journalists doing exactly the same to me. So if you've got a target on you, this is what my new documentary looks at. The law can be used and twisted and changed in any way. The sentencing can be manipulated anyway. For that contempt, when I got 13 months outside Leeds Crown Court, which I then got another 9 months, yeah, and put back to jail. I was put in Belmarsh. Max, the video you just showed me, the beard, is me coming out after a few months of solitary confinement in there. It's kept on total solitary confinement for the crime of what? I went outside a court case and reported. I'd done 2 prison sentences of solitary confinement. They knew when we went before the lead judge again, this Dame Victoria Sharp, who I'm about to totally expose as corrupt in my new film. When I went before her, my mental health records were put forward by psychiatrists that said, do not underestimate the level of severe post-traumatic stress disorder that this gentleman is suffering. In an era of mental health, like, I haven't committed a violent crime. Okay. I've gone to work as a journalist, and she just put me straight back in jail, straight back on solitary confinement. Again, and by this point, obviously, I've been removed from social media. My ability to reach the public with the alternative side of the story is gone totally. They made me, after that Panodrama documentary, they made it that if you mention my name, if you go on Facebook now and put Tommy Robson, you get deleted. I become a figure a name that could not be spoken. And I take that as, I actually take it as a massive compliment that this little working class lad from Luton managed to rattle the establishment that much, that they've imprisoned. I face now 2 years in jail again. I don't know if you know.
Just so I can tally the amount of time that you spent in jail, the time that you were sentenced to 13 months, how long did you spend in jail before you were released?
I got out after 11 weeks.
11, so 3 months. Holy crab apples. Okay. Second time, causing the 9-month sentence. Did you serve the 9 months?
No, because they took off the 11 weeks. So I got out after 10 weeks.
Okay, 21 weeks now. That's 5 months in jail total. And you got arrested at the for anti-Semitism at the latest protest. Is that the one now that you stand to go back to jail for?
No. So this you're going to go down an even worse hole if you think this is. If you think this is bad, yeah. So I reported on a case in the north of England. In a Syrian refugee had been at school when there was a video of him getting water poured on him. Yeah? This video blew up. It went on international news, CNN, Israeli news, China news. It went everywhere. All of our main commentators are. The Syrian refugee was invited to Parliament by Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary. This was world news. Yeah, they said that he's escaped war to only be racially bullied. I then get contacted by parents at the school, children at school, saying it's all a lie. He's a little shit. He's been attacking girls. He's been doing this. I then make a video. £168,000 was donated to the Syrian refugee in 24 hours. I make a video saying, whoa, 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 British public, stop. You're being lied to. You're not getting the full. You've got 10 seconds of a video. You don't understand what's happened before the video because he'd threatened to rape the kid's sisters who were 9 years old. Yeah? You're not getting the true story. So I report it. I report it. People stop donating. I'm then contacted by some Muslim celebrity lawyers. Shamina Begum's lawyer, and they threatened me and say pay £50,000 or apologise. I refused. I didn't pay £50,000 and I refused to apologise and I refused to delete the video. I said the video is the truth. I stand by the video. I stand by what I've said. I spoke to parents who had sent me pictures of their daughter who had bit the face off. Yeah, so and I shared the picture. They said it was a lie. I shared pictures of another girl and another mother. I spoke to another mother. So I made my report and I said no, this is the truth. What happened then is the mother deleted what she'd said and put out a statement saying I shouldn't have said it. Yeah, and I was sued. Yeah, and when I was sued, then the young English boy, I went up to meet the young English boy who poured the bottle of water over him, and when I went up to interview his family, his mum was sat there crying. They were hiding in the hotel. Muslim gangs. This is all on the documentary. I've made a documentary about this as well. All the gangs have gone to the white family's house. His house had come under attack. They'd had to leave, and his mum said, "I've spent all my Christmas money, Tommy. We've got nowhere to live." Yeah? This is a 4-hour drive from where I live. I said, "Come and stay with me. Yeah, you can come and stay with me." This boy lived with me for 3 years. Yeah? He was 16. He had to leave his home, so I took him back, and he come down to live with us for safety. And then they sued me, and they took me to the High Court of London. Yeah?
Who's the they? The Somalian kid family?
Syrian refugees, lawyers who are celebrity Muslim lawyers,
okay,
sued me
for defamation, or
yeah, for defamation of Jamal. So what I'd done is I wore a covert camera and I went to the school teachers' houses, and I knocked at school teachers' houses. And the first Asian teacher comes out and says, "Tommy, sorry, I took the money." So what do you mean you took the money? He said, "They paid me, bro." I said, "Who paid you?" He said, "Kirklees Council." Now, the leader of Kirklees Council was a Muslim gentleman whose brother was an imam. I don't know if you remember in Batley School in the north of England when the teacher tried to have a freedom of speech discussion. The teacher's still in hiding now. There was large protests by radicals outside the school. Well, they were ordered by Mufti. Those protests were organised by Mufti Imam, yeah? And that Mufti's brother controls Kirklees Council, who's another Muslim. So the council had paid him. So I go to the head teacher's house and he says, "Tommy, you're never going to get the truth out there." I said, "Why not?" He said, "No one's allowed to tell the truth." And he said, I've signed a non-disclosure agreement. I said, did they pay you? He said, yes. So I've got 7 teachers who were all paid. And I say to the teacher, when I knock at one woman's teacher's house, remember, I only said that Jamal had threatened to stab someone and attacked a girl. So I knock at the head teacher's house and he says, because he had a broken arm. This Jamal had a broken arm in the video when he got a bottle of water poured over him. He had his arm in a plaster cast. And we were told by his Muslim celebrity lawyer on the news that was broke in a similar racist attack. When I sit down with the head teacher, all on covert recording, he says, do you know how he broke his arm? And I did. I said, how? He said he was attacking a boy 4 years younger than him, and he got pushed off him. And that's how he broke his arm. So I interviewed the boy that he attacked 4 years younger than him. He'd called the boy's mum a white slag. Yeah. So I then get his school records. He gets caught with a knife and screwdriver in school. He stabs another pupil. Yeah? He stabs another pupil. So I get all of this evidence, including seven teachers. One woman teacher says women couldn't speak to him, this boy. Yeah? We couldn't speak to him. He was so aggressive. He hated women because of his culture that he'd come from. Yeah? He didn't think we should be seen. Then I get other children that he beats up. One girl with a hockey stick, another girl he spits at. I get all of this onto covert recordings. I go to my court case with the judge. I make it aware. I drop the little clips of the videos. Like, in other words, I'm laughing, thinking, you've got nothing. You've got nothing. That night, again, this is on the documentary, my mum and dad's house smashed to pieces the next day. My mum and dad's at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, they threaten. They ring my ex-wife. They ring my ex-wife and threaten my ex-wife in her home and give her new address. Yeah, the police trace the number, and this is all in the documentary. You can see. I ring the police 3 months later and say, you trace the number, even though they rang on private number. You know who made that call? Yes. Can you tell me why there's been no arrests? She says, I can't. I said, how are they not getting arrested? How is it? But this is all going on. I go to the lead judge, his name, I go to the judge and I produce all my evidence in court. And I think this is it, case done. I got 5 pupils who've never met me come to court to testify about the Syrian refugee. Yeah? They testified he beat him up with a hockey stick. They testified, another girl testified he spat and slapped her. Another pupil testified that he beat him. Another pupil witnessed all of this. The judge writes out an injunction for me. Look, writes out an injunction. Everything that was in the covert recordings, everything was listed in the injunction, and I get 2 years prison if any of it's ever shared with the public. And then the judge rules against me and bankrupts me for £1.6 million. And this film is called Silence. So I made this into a film. Yeah? And then I come out of court, and I failed. I should have released that film. I should have released that film, but I don't. 2 years for me is a year of solitary confinement. So I was worried, I was nervous. And then in March this year, it was released in a cinema in Florida by James O'Keefe's team with General Flynn. The comments from General Flynn, I read his comments on the work, on my journalism, which was fabulous. It was such a great moment for me as an activist and as a journalist to have someone so respected, talk so highly of my work. But then, so I'm on the run at this point. Yeah, as soon as I knew that film was coming out, I left the UK. I'm sat in Spain for 6 months, and I'm not in a good place again. If I'm honest, I'm away from my children. This whole thing from when you see this film, Silence, I've never released it yet. So, but it's been released. It has been put out there. I then I'm sitting in Spain for 6 months, thinking I'm wanted. They're going to give me 2 years. I made the decision to go home because no police have come looking for me. I go home. I'm home for 6 weeks. I then organise a protest against the Armistice Day. Before this is what happens. As soon as the Palestinian conflict kicked off, they were protesting. They kept talking about attacking our war memorials and our monuments, and on Armistice Day, our sacred day. So I organised for 3,000 young men to turn up at the monuments. 2 days later, my solicitors received a letter from the Attorney General, again, the government, to say we are prosecuting for contempt of court, for breaching the order for the film site.
The injunction in the defamation case of Silence.
Yeah. The injunction in defamation. So I made a response to that. So I had to legally respond at the end of November. And I legally responded, but I publicly responded. I made a video saying, fuck you to the Attorney General, basically. Saying that, and this is not something, because I am scared of it, I am worried about it. But what I said is, this film, categorically, there's no grey area. I absolutely finished them. You will never trust the judiciary
I don't know if I'm allowed asking you this question. Is this the documentary? I mean, this is someone who put this up on Rumble. It's, let me see here. I'll skip, just go in halfway.
You know, which most people.
Is this from the movie?
That's from the movie, bro.
Well, I've shared the link and I'm going to watch this afternoon. That's for damn sure.
You are going to be absolutely shocked. If you think, you know, like this is it's an awakening for a lot of people. I've gone through this. So I've been through the courts. Like, for example, now you saw the anti-Semitism rally where I was arrested recently. Yeah? And the funny thing is, you saw the anti-Semitism rally where I was arrested recently. For the last 6 months, I've been under conditions I'm banned from entering London. Yeah? I didn't do anything. So on that day, I went into London to report as a journalist. The law that they've used to disperse me, they're not allowed to use against someone who's at work anyway, yeah? But they've used it to get these conditions. They charged me. I face 3 months in prison for that, yeah? It's cost me so far. I'm in court next, so I'm supposed to be on trial 22nd, 23rd of April. Just this last couple of days, they've contacted saying the police officer's not available those days. We've been waiting for this trial for 5 months. I've been banned from my capital city. I wasn't allowed to go to watch Christmas lights turn on with my children. I wasn't allowed to take my children. I was arrested. I went into London on my daughter's birthday for her birthday, and I was arrested then. I spent 2 days in Nick then and had to get out. I've spent so far, so in this documentary, which I was calling Lawfare, now it's Britain, a totalitarian state, but it shows people that the process, the process is what they're doing. That's what they want. So it's cost so far £40,000. I was arrested for nothing. By the time I get to trial, even if I'm acquitted, it's £60,000. It's £60,000. It's not just £60,000, but they've managed so far for 6 months. They're trying to change the date. If they can change the date and kick it for another 3-4 months, they've got me out of London for the whole of summer. And the reason why they want me out of London, if there's one person that can galvanise men in response to these jihadists, they know it's me, and that's what they don't want. The last thing they want. They'd rather just hand the city over, which is what they've done essentially. Hand the capital over to Hamas, let them do what they want, let them climb up our war memorials. Anyone who gets in the way gets tough treatment by the police. But that film, as I said, I haven't released that film. I'm not encouraging anyone to watch that film. I face right now, I'm just waiting for my court date. The last contact we had was at Christmas. So, but it is the government. They take ages on these things. But essentially, if they bring me to court on that, they will imprison me for that. But essentially, it will bring about a discussion that I want to be had, that I could only dream about being had. If it's watched by the right people, and they're as outraged as they should be when they see what they've done, it will be the judiciary that's on trial, not me.
Someone in the chat over on Rumble said, wondering why Nigel Farage has an animosity toward you.
Nigel Farage, people may not hearing it, is part of the establishment. He's an ex-city banker. He's friends with them. Yeah? Nigel Farage has never been into a working class community or a state where we're from. Yeah? He holds a pint of beer to sell himself to us. He's not one of us. So I don't believe he probably hasn't got a friend from working class background. There is a massive class issue. Also, Nigel Farage, or the other way to look at it as well, is Nigel Farage worked his whole life about Brexit, about the European Union. My politics of discussing Islam may have muddied the water for Nigel Farage. He may have, that may be the decision he made to, because he sort of like didn't just sidelined us, but tarnished us as well. As I said, when I was in jail, he was sat on TV. I'm using it in this documentary. He was sat on TV justifying why I should be in jail. But at the same time, then I thought about it because I was angry with him for a long time. But then I thought about it and thought he had worked his whole life. He probably saw that my politics or involvement with me may have tarnished the job that he was trying to do with Brexit. So to throw us under the bus was probably, in hindsight, the right thing for him to do if he wanted to go through with Brexit. And in fact, the proof's in the pudding. He set up the Brexit Party. He appealed to the left and the right, something that may not have happened with my involvement. So he probably made the right decision for his cause.
And I said, first of all, I don't want to take you longer than you have. So you'll let me know. The EDL, you recently have, in fact, separated from the EDL because of, am I understanding it right, that you don't like their ideological beliefs, and so there had to be some separation?
I left the English Defence League in 2015. There hasn't been an English Defence League for 8 years. So it's still got the reputation, still got the name, still has to fear. And I keep talking about bringing it back just to say to politicians, if you want, I can turn it on out. I can turn it out, and the mood's there now. The country needs it more than ever. But I didn't. I left in 2015 because I felt at that time that marching through areas with high Muslim populations had to happen. The way we done it had to be done. But we'd got the discussion going. We'd brought subjects to the forefront that no one was talking about. Now they are. No one had been killed. We're lucky for that, because it could have been one death on either side in those demonstrations would have possibly caused a sectarian conflict in the UK. We would have seen something that no one wants to see. So I made the decision at that point in 2015 to leave the English Defence League, to try and find a solution outside of that. Do you know what it was? It was a moment when we'd travelled the country marching. We'd done 2 protests in my hometown of Luton. When people were talking about another one in Luton, I didn't want another one in Luton. So I thought, Luton Council had sat me down and started telling me some of the issues they're addressing. They're looking at what we've been saying. So I didn't think it benefited to just continually mindlessly march through towns. And I felt that there was now a better way to reach the public. My job is to make people think and challenge their minds and share with them what I've seen, and what I see and what's happening. And I found a better way to do that. Thank Rebel Media, give me a job. Ezra Levant turned me from a football hooligan into a journalist. I give him that credit. And then I started my journalism, and I found something that I was very good at. I've made some fabulous films, not just saying that, absolutely fabulous documentaries, investigative, really heart-wrenching, really upsetting, grooming ones. We've done a 5-part series in Telford. We go and find the men. We've done a police-style investigation. And when we done this, they come, they blew up my car. They went to my mum's house. They threatened my family. And I realised maybe why some people don't shine a light on these gangs, because they are extremely violent, extremely well organised. But we took them on in Telford. We humiliated them. I walked into their businesses. It was the most satisfying, because they know. Like, we're walking in going, yes, you're in my episode, mate. But we sat down with 12 girls. When the men were named by 3 or more, that's when they're starred in our programme. Not just taking the word of one disgruntled young girl. Yeah, when they're named by 3 or more. So when I approach the men, I say 3 different women have named you as trafficking them and prostituting them. Why would 3 women make it up? We got enough evidence for there to be police investigations, but they've done nothing. There's a fabulous series. If you want to watch it, it's called The Rape of Britain. It's on my Rumble channel, Tommy Robinson Official. It's a 5-part series. I've also done a documentary, the Panodrama documentary, the one that got me re-prosecuted and put back in jail, is an absolute obliteration of the BBC. Just nailed it. Hope Not Hate. I've done one of the, so people understand. Well, there was one case. We're covering all these rape gangs. There was a case up in Barrow where a young girl said she'd been raped. Everyone's outraged. She's beaten black and blue, and the police remanded her in jail. I went up to Barrow to investigate. 2,000 cars. It was the start of COVID. All the cars are driving through Bibbing. The town's ready to blow. And then I started looking into the case. I spent a week there. A lot of what she was saying wasn't adding up. I then waited by the Muslim gentleman's house. His name was Mohammed. And his wife come back. They got ice cream vans. And his wife's like, what the fuck are you doing here? I said, I just want to speak to your husband. Yeah. I'm investigating stuff. I'd like to ask him some questions. He then rings me up, tells me to come around his house. I went round his house. As I walked in his house, someone shouted paedophile at him and shouted racist at me. Another person shouted racist at me. So when I walked in his house, I said, I think I won that one. Yeah. I won that one, Mo. But his son was in there who was 16. Now, I've seen the effect of just what my children have had to deal with growing up with me being their dad, with the accusations of being a racist. And I'm sitting there with this young Muslim kid looking at him, who's had to leave college, who's been bullied out of college because the word around the town is his dad's a rapist. And what I investigated didn't add up to the fact his dad was a rapist. So I just said, listen, I'm here for the truth. And I said, I'm just here to ask you some questions. And I felt for his son and his family. Actually, there could be nothing worse than being labelled a rapist. It must be nothing worse. And I made a film there called The Phantom Rape Gang. And I spent my time and I tracked down the girl's dad. I challenged him on his lies. Again, I was arrested by the police. Conditions not to talk about sexual exploitation. I could have freed this Muslim gentleman because I knew he was innocent. I knew the girl would lie. In the end, the girl got prosecuted and got 8 years in jail 2 years later. Yeah? And the media come out saying I went up there to instigate racial problems. Mohammed Rami, the Muslim gentleman, come out and said, Tommy Robinson was the only one who come to help us. The only man that come to investigate and help us was Tommy Robinson. And I've gone on podcasts. You can watch one with him. We become friends. He's a hilarious character. Like I'm friends with his whole family. But he's a Muslim gentleman who, again, I'm not here. What I said to him is, this may suit my narrative, yeah, but I'm here for the truth. And if the truth goes against our narrative, which it totally did, and again, I made a film which totally exposed those lies. Every Muslim I went to in the town of Barrow opened their doors to me, and I asked them harsh questions as a journalist. I asked them the questions that the other journalists should have been asked. I investigated it in a way that should have been investigated, and yeah, so I take pride in my work now. I think I'm fabulous at the job I do. I have a great support base of people who support my work and trust my work and trust what I say, which is totally different to what the mainstream media have. No one trusts them. If I come out and say, look, I've done an investigation, he's not involved, people will believe it.
The question I want to ask you, I'm putting the links in the pinned comment, at least to your channel and to the documentary. What toll has it taken? I don't want to ask where you are because I'm not sure if there's any questions I'm not allowed asking you. You're still married, and what are you still married?
No, I'm divorced. You'll see it on that film Silence. So what they've done on that film Silence is again, this is just mad. Two weeks after Christmas, the police come into my house and they give me intelligence that Antifa have armed themselves with guns and they want to target my house. Yeah, this is all on the documentary. So I put that video online. The first two people to comment on that video were an independent journalist and Mohammed Akunji, the Muslim celebrity lawyer for the Syrian. So they comment knowing that the police have given us intel that Antifa want to target us in our house. They go and they hire an Antifa extremist to hand deliver legal papers for the Syrian case to my family's home and to live stream. It's all on the documentary. I'm not in the country, so they choose when they know I'm not in the country and they send people to live stream. My ex-wife now presses the panic button. The man that come to the house makes a video saying he's going to murder my children. My family had to leave that home and never go back. They had to leave their houses. I had 3 children in 3 schools at that time. So that was, and my wife had a decision to make at that time for the protection of our children. And she made the decision of our children, which is the right decision.
Yeah. I don't even know what to ask you anymore, Tommy.
Yeah, you can. So yeah, that's the toll. But yeah, embarrassing, eh?
No, it's not. It's devastating. I heard you on another podcast, and you say like you think that someone's going to try to that they're going to kill you, and I don't like putting that juju out in the universe. It's just like this is torture of a human to the point where I can see you being put in a position where you just say, I'm going to keep doing it until you do it to me, because this is absolute torture.
Yeah, but the reception I receive everywhere I go is so inspiring for me. Because I was hated. I am now loved, and I know that, and I see that. And even when I walk into court, I may walk in on my own, and I know there's an army behind me. I know there is. So I never feel on my own. I also am very confident. I'm sitting here. I know no matter what happens, my family are good. I know people will rally behind my family. I've seen it. And essentially, when you watch that film Silence, it's the insanity of what they've been allowed to do. Like the lawyers giving extremists my children's home. I made a complaint. They've done nothing. And then again, listen to this. So the two journalists who were conspiring with these people who sent them to my children's home, yeah, I then start making a video to expose them. So I make a video exposing this journalist. They take me to court. The Metropolitan Police took me to court and give me a stalking prevention order. I'm not allowed to mention her name or I go to jail. I'm not allowed to mention her name. I get 4 years in jail. So I made a counterpiece to show what they've done. Not allowed to. And there's a Muslim judge. So I don't know if you saw recently, after the October 7th, three Muslims wore paragliders on their backs. And they were prosecuted on Terrorism Act. They went to trial and they pled not guilty, but they got convicted but the Muslim judge let them totally off scot-free. That's the same Muslim judge they put me before who convicted me of the stalking prevention order, even though I had every bit of evidence it was just bullshit, the whole case. So what people need to understand is this level of lawfare, this attack on journalism or speech or total control that's happening. It's here, it's everywhere, and it ain't going to get any better. And the people like Nigel Farage, like, I'll tell you what just happened. Just a little small detail. Apple phones have blocked access, and so have Google Play Store. Have blocked access to my Telegram channel. So I had 150,000 people on Telegram. If you have an Apple phone now, and you go on my Telegram channel, it says, I'll show you. You can do it yourself. It says, this message could not be displayed on your device. Yeah.
What is your what's your? I was almost going to show my cell number.
Tommy Robinson News. Try this now. Tommy Robinson News. So Apple, mass corporations, because Telegram won't delete us. Yeah, they managed to get us off all the other socials. I'm on Twitter, but I'm shadow banned on Twitter. So you have to put in @TRobinsonNewEra. But Apple have decided to block us. Not one British journalist, not one commentator, not Nigel Farage, no politician is speaking out about this mass interference by corporations and businesses to silence people's voices in this country. So my Telegram kept us on, but we're now blocked by the Play Store, blocked by the Android, blocked by all of it. So yeah, and they don't talk about it. It's like I had my banks were first closed down in 2009. I can't get a bank. I've had all my banks closed. I can't get a bank. PayPal shut me. Email. Stripe. I'm blocked on Stripe. Yeah.
I mean, how do you get by on a day-to-day?
I work for a company called Urban Scoop as a journalist. They cover my expenses. They cover my overheads. They're great at organising. I'm not that great at organising. I'm great at doing. So I work for a company called Urban Scoop. We have a subscription-based process. People can sign up monthly to our work, which enables us to cover the work we're covering. And currently, as I said, I'm working on this film, which again, my fight back or my way of punching back. And I think you tried to break me with Panodrama, I humiliate you. Yeah? You tried to do it with each case. Each time I've come out and there's more public support for me. You tried to delete us off social media. Elon Musk has given me my voice back. I'm still search banned. But I'm back. I have more credibility amongst the public. I've had so many people who apologise to me when I see them in the street who hated me. I met two Asians, where I was having lunch, who said the same. Like, I didn't used to like you, and then now I see. So many people. There's been a mass awakening, especially since October 7th. There's been a mass awakening, and as time goes on, like our videos will age well, our discussions will age well, our work, our content will age well.
What is your end goal with this now? I mean, I understand that. Where do you see yourself in? And it's a cliched question. Do you see yourself leaving the England at any point?
I left straight after that case when I was bankrupt. I left and I based myself, before that even, I based myself in Tenerife, and then between Tenerife and Spain. I can't get a house here. I can't rent a house. When I come back here, I'm going to quickly in families' houses, but I don't want to put them in danger. So it's hard. So I base myself abroad. I come here and go mad for 2 weeks. And do you know what? It gives me my sanity, because I come here and go mad for 2 weeks, and then I disappear for 2 weeks. And literally, I am ignorant. That goes off. And I concentrate on myself. I go to the gym and I relax. So that's how I operate and have operated for a while now. So I think that the Donald Trump election is a major moment for all of us in November. I think that what's happening, the borders that are open in America, in Canada, they're busting them in, they're flying them in. None of this is a mistake. So this is the most important time for any of us if we want to preserve our country's identities, if we want to preserve the safety for our children. The men who are being brought in are from a totally different mindset of us, totally different. And to be honest, many of us now in our societies are weak compared to these men. We're in trouble, real trouble.
Well, ended with
we're in trouble, but end on something positive. End on positive that Geert Wilders won the election, that Philip de Winter's win the election, that Marine Le Pen won the election, Trump's winning the election.
I'll end it on something positive with respect to you, Tommy. I've been sitting here looking at these chats the whole time. We did nothing after Lee Rigby's murder. Since then, the government got worse. Tommy is my hero from No DP. Tommy is passionate and SB on what is SB? I don't know what that means. Instead, they try to crush him, but he never gives up. Viva, can you arrange to a watch party at Pandorama and Tommy post where we can pay?
I'll put a link to Panorama on my Twitter at T Robinson New Era. Panorama, I'm not just saying it here. When you watch it, there's a moment. So as I start playing the videos, their producers' heads go in their hands, and at the end, and let me tell you what I'll tell you what I've done quickly. Yeah? So to prove that Panorama are the best investigative journalists in the country. Yeah. So I went on a website, sendafaketext.com. I got my ex-employee because they approached on my ex-employees. I said, right, I'm at home in bed. Let's send a text message from this website to you to make it look like it's from me. So he sent her a text message that said, if you work with Panorama, I will bury you, you bitch. So he sent the text message. She hands it over to Panorama. Yeah. So they should do their due diligence and check if it's legit. Yeah. When I'm sitting with John Sweeney, showing him all the covert recordings, he keeps putting his hand in his pocket and I keep stopping him. And at the end, he goes, right, I've got something to ask you. I've got something to ask you, Tommy Robinson. And he opens up this bit of paper. He says, you sent this message. And I just looked at the camera. I just went, I fucking told you. I told you. It suited their narrative, so they didn't even check the authenticity of it. And it's just like, it was such a humiliating moment for the BBC, for the government. I finished a documentary on how to cancel your subscription fee and your BBC license subscription fee, and 1 million people cancelled their subscription fee. 1 million people that year. So
is there any way for people to directly support you?
There is, yeah, on Urban Scoop. So if you sign up to work on Urban Scoop, that helps me. Remember, when people see my content, see my work, there's a team. I have a team of people. I have a team of people now who research. Everything we do is research. We make sure it's right. I have a full-time editor and cameraman who's a total professional, which is great. I have our expenses. I travel a lot. I'm back and I travel all the time. I'm in hotels or traveling, which is an expensive life to live. Yeah. I'm constantly on the move. So yeah, and I'm grateful to everyone's support, because anyone who does support our work, watch this next documentary. Yeah. Watch the next one.
Tommy.
I'm going to embarrass them. The Met Police Force, Mark Rowley, you're going to be humiliated.
Tommy, I'm becoming increasingly convinced. I mean, it's proven to be the case that the people who they claim are the biggest villains are in fact quite the opposite. So
I've been a villain as well. I don't claim to purge my halo.
Well, stick around here. I want to talk with you for a few minutes after we end this, but thank you very much. I'm going to put all the links out there. You'll give me every link that you want me to blast around, and I'll do it. Awesome. Tommy, thank you a million, and please, we'll stay in touch. And if you're ever in Florida, let me know, but I'll be following what goes on with your case.
Mate, at least if you can post links to these are my
the link is in the description on.
These are my two. This is my life story. This one's my life story up until. So this tells my life story growing up in Luton. This is Silence from 2015. Because I thought when I wrote this in 2015, highlighting all, I thought, they lay off a bit now. They got worse. That's this. This is the one. This is the latest one, yeah? This is the Quran in chronological order. This proves categorically to anyone, there's no interpretation issue. With abrogation is if you know Islam, with abrogation in Islam, what Muhammad said late in his life supersedes what he says earlier. So if you pick up any Quran and you open it up, what Muhammad said one day is next to saying he said 20 years later. It's not in a chronological order. And so it's so important to understand it chronologically, because so what we've done with this is we've took it, put it back in its chronological order, which is when Winston Churchill read the Quran, it was in chronological order. When William Gladstone held the Quran above his head in Parliament, one of our greatest leaders ever, statues of him across our capital city, held it above his head in Parliament and said there'll never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book. So this book puts in chronological order. We take the verses. If you look here, we put in bold writing every word of war. And when you get a verse like this, Surah 8:1, it has a little line through it, and it says cancelled by 841, because abrogation cancels it out. So when we get quoted these peaceful verses, in the first 10 years of Muhammad's life, yeah, he was peaceful. He had no followers. Then he introduced war. So if Muhammad said late in his life to kill, when he said to be peaceful earlier, the latter verse supersedes the earlier one. We literally go through every verse and mark out so you understand why. The idea of this is that you can win the debates around the table, you can win the argument, and you are given the knowledge to be able to defend your argument and basis that Islam is a danger.
Who worked with you on that book? Because I presume you have to have...
Pete McLaughlin worked with me on this. He's brilliant. And this is, you can get this at Urban Scoop and at mohammedsquran.com. These two are on a website called trsilence.com. trsilence.com. And yeah, again, they're brutally honest. The books are honest about my flaws as well, because I've got many. And but yeah, Muhammad's Quran. This is banned. They banned this. This one went to #1 4 times. Yeah, even though they cancelled this. This one they banned. It went to #3. It was going to #1, and they banned it off Amazon. This was banned off Amazon. So you can buy Mein Kampf. You can buy Hitler's book in 20 different translations.
You beat me to the joke, because I was going to say, regardless of how one feels about your book, I knew another guy who made a parody of Mein Kampf. I think it was called Mein Kampf. It was called Mein Kampf. That was banned on Amazon. But Mein Kampf, you can because it's important. It's a wild double standard. It'll never make sense except in that it's intended to be the destruction of civil and free society.
Yeah, and they don't want you to be able to get support either. So they know that if you've got books out, so I've got those 3 books out, and yeah, this one we actually use because this is why I say they're cowards. This is a quote from Boris Johnson in 2006. Remember what it says in the Holy Quran: slay the unbelievers wherever you can find them. We will perform jihad against the kuffar, the unbelievers. That is from Boris Johnson. Went on to become our Prime Minister, total coward, didn't mention Islam, wouldn't talk about it. That this looks, in the introduction to this, we look through history at American leaders, military leaders. All of them spoke openly and honestly about Islam, because their jobs as our leaders of military and government, their job was to warn the public of dangers, and they used to. And then since the great lie of George W. Bush, you know the phrase Islam is a religion of peace. You won't find that anywhere in history till George W. Bush. That's never been said. Try and find it. We tried. You cannot find anyone saying Islam's religion of peace until George W. Bush. And then he just told that lie, and it was said 1,000 times, and then all of a sudden everyone keeps parroting it, and it's just nonsense. There's never been that. Islam's religion of war, always has been, of supremacy, always has been. There's never been an argument about interpretation. It's just been Muhammad and his actions. But that's what, yeah, these books. So thank you very much.
Tommy, stick around. We're going to say our proper goodbyes to everyone else out there. Thank you all very much. We're going to end it now and share away after we're done with this. Tommy, thank you. Ending transmission.